Record this. All right. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, you have been doing wonderful work.
I'm just, I don't know. It just keeps coming. So I take it as it comes.
That's exactly right.
You got a haircut.
I did, huh? Every now and then I still get excited when I have enough to.
That's funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me bring up whatever you want to start with.
Oh, I guess the sketches. I sent some more this morning. I don't know if you had time to look at them.
I have not. I have not.
I can share screen and pull them up.
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah, there was
I
let's
just found them. I just
see.
saw them. So yeah, it may be easier if you.
Let's see.
And the recordings you've been doing are excellent. Are those going to be on your channel or for your channel?
Yes, I'm gonna probably today or tomorrow put them up. Yesterday, twice I sat down and I got all the way to the last step where it said publish. And somebody just was like, nope, not yet, not yet, not yet.
Right. Okay. Well,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it was funny because I kept thinking, well, I wonder what's the big deal. And the only thing that kept coming into my head was that it was the 13th. I don't want to do it on the 13th. I kept hearing somebody say, I said, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so let me ask, how does everybody feel about the project you're doing, about the channel?
Oh, I guess I haven't really run it by them. I'm just kind of gonna do it. I think they're okay. I mean,
Ultimately you are in charge, so but
yeah, yeah, no,
um
it was funny because that first recording I did, it was so spontaneous. Chris was off camping and a Saturday night through Sunday,
yeah.
and it was Sunday morning, and something just said, just sit down and record something. You don't have to look perfect, you don't have to be perfect, just start talking and whatever comes out, comes out. So I was like, okay. And that's what I did. And then I thought, well, I'll wait another week, try and do something weekly. But no, the next day somebody was like, record your TED session. He's got a name now, Ted. And so I thought, okay, I
Yes.
will. So it's like not
So,
even
right?
it's
It's
I don't
kind of a
even
different TED Talk. We're gonna talk, Ted. Come here.
I
Yeah,
didn't even think of that, but
TED
I don't
Talks.
know. I don't know what part that is or if it's many, but I feel like it's not me. It's like someone
Yeah,
inside saying, do it, do it, do it.
that's right. Okay,
And
good.
then you're like encouraging me, so that helps. So
Now,
this,
your willingness and ability to, so I can give you encouraging feedback or objective, and
yeah, yeah.
your willingness to share even the most of vulnerable things.
I
Um,
know. I'm thinking, should
it,
I be that?
no, ready? I think very few are willing to, and so it's just absolutely stellar.
Okay,
I'm
good, good.
telling you, it's really going to help people because you will be sharing what nobody wants to, but what everybody has experienced.
Needs to. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So I don't know,
Cool.
just what
Okay.
happened. So
When,
this
when,
picture you got already, but last night I added this.
okay. See, I didn't have a chance to open it yet.
Yeah. So this is a guillotine with a
Yeah.
string. And yeah, the
You
execution is
remember getting this, you have this image in your mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been there for the stage has been in my head for like a week and the curtain and the guillotine, but I didn't see the rest of it until was it the 11th? Yeah. So
And
there's
how did it come back all in one piece or just different?
well, like I said, the first one I sent you did not have this camera. This is a camera on a tripod. It was just, the picture without that. But like I said, I think it was, yeah, it was this morning or last night I added that on there. Um, Same thing. This picture was exactly as it is without the camera. I added the camera a few days later. And here's why. Isn't this fascinating? It was literally like an audience with a stage, and this is in someone's home, like in their basement kind of thing. Um, I need to actually, I don't know if you saw that batch.
I may be a few batches behind.
Okay, well, here's
Okay, okay.
but you can see underneath the hip, see the little scratches and stuff. That's the
Um,
sigil that was carved into the cement that I was trying to cover. And there's another one here that covered really well. And little bits on these corners. So that's why I added the heart. Um, but today in the shower, I realized I need to change this picture. I thought that's all Fatty wanted to say. But now it needs to have a wall all through it. I,
meaning what?
yeah, like Trisha's wall,
Yeah.
except Fatty is the wall. Trish stands by the wall, but Fatty is the wall. I realized that this morning in the shower. So
That-
here's this same picture, but without the camera.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, Diana,
Same thing here, no camera. Yeah,
when even that image, the very first one, came to your mind, and you had referenced, though, the executioner before.
yeah,
When
yeah.
was the first time the image, and how did it come to your mind, and what was the impact? What was the response when you saw this?
Well, honestly, I don't, when I sit down in front of the sketch pad, I have a very vague, like I started off drawing the stage and then I drew the curtains. So I knew it was a stage and I was like, oh, okay. And then I
And what
saw,
feeling, what caused you to sit down and start? So this will be good information for me. So as you're tapping in, so
I think it was 5/11. It was that day that Fatty wanted chocolate cake. That was the day. She didn't want to, she wanted chocolate cake to stuff everything. And I said,
okay,
no.
so Fatty had a sense that something was coming up.
I guess so. Yeah. Because I kept asking, Fatty, I know that here, I'll show you this. I knew
This will
that,
be really good as we're talking through it. This will be really good. There's probably
yeah.
other survivors that are going to be asking the same kind of question, like, well, how does,
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I knew that the executioner was like the MC. She would pull out, either
yeah,
the sexual component or the killers. But that Fatty, see this arrow? I don't know if you can see over here, but these are the executioner is who taps in, the killers, and Sarge gets their orders, and it's the worker bee, right? So this is like another room that
yeah,
Fatty is the guardian of. Like Trish
okay.
is the guardian of the other room, but she's the guardian here. And because this connects to the other room, she is the wall. I realized that today. She is the wall. I thought she was just an accessory piece, I guess, but she is the wall. So I knew because I placed her there that I needed her permission to access what was going on in these places. Like she was okay reminding me about this. She said, because these weren't a big deal. I was like, abortions, that's a big deal. But to her, they're minimal, they're minuscule. For her, these were the big deals. And
So is it almost like, and this is just me asking, thinking in terms of, Sarge and the others, is it almost like, um, I just pictured like a fortress that Fatty controls the fortress. What gets in, what
maybe,
gets out.
yeah, I guess I never thought of it as a fortress, just a wall. I don't even see where the wall goes, what it wraps around. It's just a wall
Yeah, yeah.
between consciousness and subconsciousness, I guess. So, but anyway, this picture, yeah, the executioner starts the show, and then, well, I'll just finish with this picture. It was first I drew the guillotine, and then I saw the body on it, and that their hands were tied behind their back. And then, the thing came down, the head came off, the body rolled and the head rolled. And then I saw the other people waiting, and I heard this. That's what you saw. The games begin, kind of like a circus, whoever's in charge of the circus kind of thing. But what would happen, and I'll show you a different
And
picture.
were the victims, were they adults? Were they kids?
These are children. Yeah, these are children. And I realized later that most of them are brown skinned children.
See,
But
that's
anyway, there's the executioner when she has the beak hood on. Well, what would happen is she would announce the show, everybody would clap, and then she would throw off her cape, and that's where Joker, Frack, or Frick would come and do their thing. Right? So I'm changing personality within a matter of 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. And then those bodies would wind up down here. Pumpkin would smash them up to tenderize them. There's another butcher, kind of like Carrie Alahe.
yeah.
She would come and cut everything up, put the body parts on a table on the skull, or leave a body whole for people to cut things up themselves. And that's what this is their flesh, bloody flesh that these people are eating. And then cups of blood, because they would gather the blood, and the butcher person filled the tables. And so they're watching the show, clapping and saying bravo, and they're eating and drinking, and
So what, I just want to make sure, what are okay, we got bloody flesh. What is it?
Oh, bloody flesh, it says brava, like instead
Okay.
of bravo, brava. They're eating, saying excellent, and clapping.
Okay. Okay.
So pretty disgusting. And you know what it reminds me of? I saw a woman out of, I think it was New Zealand, do her thing on YouTube. Not with Emma, she just did her own video. I think it was her family videotaped her talking and walking around town, showing people places. But she was talking about how they went into a church after hours, and there were a row of 6 or 8 children, I forget how many, and somebody just went through with a knife and decapitated one after the other, and all the people in the audience were clapping.
Whether
And
she videotaped this event?
not the event, she was videotaping herself standing in the church empty or at the doorway,
Describing.
describing her memories. And she said, I don't care if you people believe this or not, but Nicole Kidman was sitting in the audience clapping, because apparently Nicole Kidman's father is a high-level psychiatric person there, and he is a part of
Yeah.
this satanic crap. So, and she's a high-level actress, so it doesn't surprise me. So, yeah, but yeah. So that's that. And then this one came. Now this was Fatty. And these are the people in the audience saying more brilliant, whatever. And this is a table full of candies and sweets, not the bloody parts, but kind of like, at a movie, what they talk about when people make movies and there's the craft food table, I think they
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
And there's donuts and coffee and sweets and whatever. And that was kind of like what this was. And so this came out first. This is so much blood. I'm so sad. God hates me. They love it. Uh, Shove it all down, because I knew I had just killed, I think, three people, 4
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right.
And then this came out. It's so bad, so nasty. Please stop. Go away. I'm no good. I'm no good. And so she's just stuffing her face,
That's right.
having all these thoughts.
Now, when
This
has
is the guilt
okay, so
and
as
shaming.
Fatty, as we're talking right now, Fatty's obviously listening.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. I
It'll be
always forget that part, that they're
right.
listening.
It'll
Uh-huh.
be interesting. Here's a thought that just came to mind. Be interesting to talk to her and find out if she wants a different name.
Oh, um,
And has she been able to tap into her anger while you've been venting?
a little bit.
Oh, you've
Yeah.
been having your TED Talks?
Yeah. I told her, I said, Fatty, you need to take a few whacks. And she did. Not very violent or,
Yeah.
whatever, but she took a couple whacks and was okay and was done.
Okay.
So
Okay.
was that. And then this came next, which like for example, I didn't know what this image was. It just started, I knew there was water, so I drew the water. And then the boat came, and so I drew a boat.
Wow.
And the name Calypso came up, so I wrote that down. And then I saw this first with me hanging over the boat. And I thought, well, why would I be hanging over the boat? And I realized, oh, the captain was raping me. Great. So I put him in there.
Yeah.
And then I saw the brown skinned children. If you'll see, I drew them as the same color as me at first.
Yeah.
This is where I became conscious of the color of the skin.
Yeah.
And so I realized these are brown skinned children. They're either black or I think mostly Hispanic, maybe black.
That's what's so vile about open borders.
I know, I know. Is these are the ones that are trafficked. I think as I'm sitting here talking to you, I believe these children were brought through the tunnels at that Notre Dame on the lake.
Oh,
And then they were taken out to the boat and were, at night we are taken to different locations. So that, and then this one came next. There's the Calypso against the boat. And how this started off was I drew this first, just me in this position. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? And then the captain came with his voice, just do it. Master wants them ripped open and ready. And then I drew the brown skinned person with their hands tied behind their back. And then I was like, oh, that's why I've been whipping Ted, because I had to whip this person. And then I heard him say harder because I had never had done that before. And then I saw these people here, three more children, because we're all the same height, so we're all say around 5 or 6. And the captain's
when
taller.
he says ripped open, is that a cat and nine tails kind of thing?
I don't know what that is.
Meaning not just a whip, but like a flagellum, like what they hit Jesus with, meaning with
Yeah.
bones and metal.
Yes. It had like beads or something on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sharp things that would cut into the
Yeah.
skin. Yeah. So, and then I drew the tears last. I saw their tears. So that was that. And then this, when we got on shore and the captain's handing us off to the mistress, I saw her first. I drew her first with her wicked little face. I feel like I captured the look pretty well.
Yeah.
And she's saying, perfect, bring them in. And then I saw the crying brown children and me feeling guilty
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're all bloody. And then the captain saying to me, you see, that's what the mistress wanted. So that's why we did it. So that's the captain dude.
Do you know who did any idea who the
No,
captain is?
no, nope. I think
You don't get a sense that it was your dad.
no. I was handed off
Okay.
at a certain point when you're at the training camp and you spend the day training,
Yeah.
and then it's around 4 or 5 o'clock, and they have kind of like a wind down little thing where you have dinner and your parents are there, or your handler, I should say. Some children had nobody. My dad would hang around because he wanted to be a part of the higher level psychopaths, so to speak.
Yeah.
But they would say, no, you don't get to go with her. And so they would shuffle me off outside, and a handler would take us to the boat, and the handler would hand us off to the boat captain. And the boat, it's like they all knew what their role was and what they were supposed to do. And then the captain took us to the home or the island or wherever.
Yeah.
And then this happened at those homes. And you saw this one, but like I said, I added a camera, and that's only because I did these pictures first before I went back. And these is the lighting. There was lighting put in there so that this snuff film, first the circles came and I knew that was lighting. And then the cameras came. I thought, okay, I've been sensing it. I think because I put myself on camera and videotaped
Oh,
myself 2 or 3 days earlier. And I was perfectly comfortable on the camera. But Jon, I'll tell you, up until that day, I have never been comfortable on camera. So some part woke up and said, it's okay. I'll take over and do the camera part.
wow.
So yeah, after I did that video, these pictures came, I think that night, or 5/13. I think I did that video on 5/12. Yeah.
And I tell you what just came to mind, it's one thing. And in the prison, I look through records. Whenever
Uh-huh.
anybody's arrested and charged, you're never going to see any title, any label, satanic, ritual abuse. You don't see that. They're charged.
Right.
Um, so they're doing snuff films, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't thought to this scale where there's a live audience.
Oh.
I mean,
Oh yeah. I
who
I
would
never would
think?
have thought of that too. That never crossed my mind either.
Who would think that you have a major production?
I know. And I actually watched a video of a guy who's an ex Satanist, but his position in the Satanist cult was that of the magician. They called him a mage. And he wound up being a high level one. But he talked about when he was a little boy before he joined the cult, he was brought in and did snuff films. And that was like his introduction to, because after what was he, like 8 when he started? Maybe, no, I think 12. And he would just go hang out at this place, and he thought it was cool because he could have as much candy bars and candies as he wanted. They would give him drugs. He could smoke. He could have sex with any girl he wanted. He just thought this was a cool thing because at home they're saying no, 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 no. And at church they're saying no, 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 no. So he said, I considered them the bad guys because they always said no. But when I'm here in this place, I thought they were the good guys because they said yes, they let me do what I wanted. And so I thought, these were the good guys. And so he would do snuff films with other children. Um, there were adults around that trained the children, but in his world, he said that they would literally get fan mail that was on paper that a child would use in kindergarten. That super wide line paper that's, it's not really white, it's kind of a beige color.
Yeah.
And it was written in crayons. He said, so we thought we were getting fan mail from other children. And so I felt like a star. His ego is being fed. He doesn't realize it, but he said it wasn't until he was like 16ish or something, a friend in school ran up to him and said, do you know that you're in a satanic cult? And he said he was taken aback. And so he went to the cult people and mentioned it to somebody. And he said, I was fully expecting them to laugh it off and say, oh no, that's nonsense. He said, but instead the person said, well, yes, that person's right. would you like, and then he said, well, am I a part of it? And the guy said, no, but would you like to be? And he says, well, what does it take? He said, well, there's 13 steps and you've done 12 of them. And the 13th step was cutting his finger open and signing his name in blood that he denounces Jesus in 3 different ways. So that was the 13th step. But what I got from that was that, yeah, this is commonplace. And he also mentioned, because I found a second one of him being interviewed by somebody completely different. And he mentioned, oh, geez, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Um,
About the guy that was initiated in.
geez, I forget now. Just gone. I guess someone doesn't want me to tell you. Anyway, but yeah, um,
He said he was interviewed a
oh,
second.
here's what it was. Yeah, that he said that the reason he thought it was okay was because he was in the Baptist church as a child, him and his family. And he said, well, the Baptists, what do they call them? Ministers or priests or whatever? I forget what the deacons, I think
Yeah,
maybe.
you got the pastors or the preachers, and
Yeah,
then
he said
deacons.
that they would show up at these shootings. He said they didn't participate and they didn't do anything, but it was like they were coming by just making sure that, things were operating all right. So when I was watching this last night, I was taken aback. I was like, oh my God, another Baptist church thing. So he said, in my mind, I thought this was, legit and okay and whatever. And he wound up, being in this satanic group till he was probably in his 40s, being the head magician. And he also talked about in the first interview, last night I watched the second interview, 2 completely different interviewers as well. But that he was one of the magicians that would go into the music industry and he would either uh do spells and magic spells for these performers who had no talent, but they were willing to do anything to become famous. And he would do magic spells and they would all of a sudden become talented. And there was just this whole routing system of taking people without talent, but who were willing to do anything. He would vet them, find out they're willing to do anything. He would put spells on them, and they would be routed to the people in the music industry. Those people would send them up the ladder, and by the time music was recorded, then spells were placed on the actual recordings so that as people bought them and took them to their house, they were inviting a demon into their house, which is what I told you that another guy who was also a Satanist and got out and was saved. Both these people, got saved. But he mentioned that as well. And so I thought, okay, well, here's 2 different people corroborating the same story. So I was just kind of relieved that I was never really into music that much. Most people are. They're just obsessed with music, and I never was, and I'm glad. So um anyway, yeah, so this, yeah, it's a professional production. And I thought it was interesting as I'm looking at this now, I thought, well, why didn't I draw the camera people? So that was interesting. I don't know if there were camera people or not.
Oh,
And then this one, same thing. Oh, yeah, that's a knife. And me. Anyway, not, Fatty doesn't like seeing that.
yeah.
Because when I drew it, I thought this person was lying on the ground and I was kneeling over. But when I looked at it today and opened it up, I realized, no, I'm holding this baby, this very small person. Because if I'm 7 or 8, that makes this person 2 or younger, because I can hold it in one hand. So
Well,
that's
Diana,
just,
that's
that's
what,
disturbing.
see, for fatty, this will probably be, so we could say, kind of reframing this, that, at the deepest level for you, it's so important. I mean, look at what the perps do to these kids. So fatty, as you say, age 7,
And yeah, there's no perps in the picture, just me as
right?
a
And,
perp.
and so I just phrase it this way. How in the world can a kid, now there is a way, right? It's very it's trying to really unpack, ultimately to get down to the truth, because only the truth is going to set us free. So for I mean, it is challenging for an adult in a situation where they have survivor's guilt. So a guy in military, so it may be your husband has to work through this, right? So think about an adult with an adult brain, whether in a vehicle accident, plane crash, wartime situation. It it's it's gut wrenching, pardon that term, right?
It
Sorry, but
is.
right,
It
for
is.
an adult in an accidental situation or in a wartime situation to have to work it through. So the perps know that unless somebody has the dedication like that you have to finding out, that to be able to take what you are seeing, what you are describing, and to be able to really work it through, it's going to take Fatty a while. And what'll probably happen, it's going to emanate through the system, but
Yeah.
it's just going to take a long time, piece by piece. And, pardon that term, meaning this, it's really the facets of the meaning and implications of what happened, and ultimately who's responsible and who's not. So fortunately, you've got the basis down, as you have said, that you know what, I know that Fatty
I
wasn't
I was
responsible,
innocent. Yeah.
right?
I was
But it's
trained to
really
do
good,
things.
right? It's one thing to know it intellectually. It's another thing, little by little, to let that try to sink in. And the way to let it sink in is what you're doing to let the trauma out, so that, like Fatty, if she's willing to do the venting, she'll actually, here's my hunch, and this will be something for you to ponder. Um, for her to speak in first person singular, and maybe it would even take the form of this. As she taps into her emotions, she's going to have to, not have to, but I'm just kind of thinking through, when one gets in touch with the emotions, right? It'll have to be almost a little interim step that says, I did this, right? So now it's feeling the guilt, it's false guilt though, but feeling, and then switching it to say, but they made me and I didn't want to be there. So then the
Yeah. Yeah.
knapsack, the responsibility gets transferred.
And that's what Ted does. Yeah, whacking on Ted.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I will say
Um,
that. And
there you go.
I was just realizing as you're talking, I think Fatty's the one that's hollering at Ted, babies, you killed babies.
There.
You killed babies. Babies. And I
Now,
think this is that.
okay, there you go. Now, do you sense when she's saying that, is she saying that from herself to herself or herself to the others, to the adults?
To the perps. She's mad she's hitting the perps saying how dare you make me kill baby.
Okay, good. Right? Because at first,
Because that's what
right,
this is. It's a baby. I thought it was like a 8-year-old kid laying on the ground and I was leaned over, but I look at it now and I'm like, no, I'm standing up and I'm
yeah.
holding that baby.
So she, as best you can tell, she's she's in the process of being able to see that she wasn't given a choice.
I don't think yet. I think yeah, yes and no.
Okay, because
Yes,
that's
no.
again, it
I
just
think I'm
takes.
explaining it to her, but I don't think she's grasping it yet. And here's something
Okay.
else that was interesting. Like before we meet, I'll get my exercise done and I'll stretch and then I'll eat like a little half of a breakfast burrito. And that's enough to last me till noon. And then I'll ride, I'll hit Ted, but today I couldn't because Chris was here and I get self-conscious. So I thought I'll do it this afternoon. So I rode my bike, took a shower, and then was ready. But as I was making his lunch and packing, I made him a bologna sandwich. And there was one slice of bologna left in the pack. And I usually do 2 slices for his sandwiches. So I put the 2 on his sandwich and there's 1 left. And I thought, ooh, well, since there's just 1, why don't you get 1 slice of bread, put the bologna, and you eat it up real quick so it doesn't sit in there and go bad. And I pulled the bread out and the mayo and I almost put it together and I realized, no, I just had breakfast. Oh, Fatty, what's going on? Why do you need to eat? And then I realized, oh, it's because we're about to go talk to Jon. And so I was like, no, I didn't let her have it. I said, I don't want to stuff anything. We need to be able to have whatever is there is there.
How's she feeling right now? Do you have a sense?
I think she's okay. It's like she's standing beside a wall, poking her head out, looking.
Yeah. Is she wondering what's going through my mind?
Yeah, she says, yeah.
Okay. Um, I am angry on her behalf of what these perps do to kids and the position the position she was put in is so heinous. Can you imagine a kid being put in a position of having to harm other kids? That's right. That's the closest thing to hell that anybody would have to go through. And that's what goes through my mind. I think of the perps, right? I worked in a prison. All these men, all these adults need to serve, prison time if any of them are still alive. That's what
She's
goes through my mind.
ashamed. She's
Okay.
really ashamed.
Like we have 2 victims in this picture right here. These are 2 kids that are being victimized. The one is being killed, but the other is going to have to live his or her life with this,
That's me. That's me.
right? And that is so heinous. And so the fatty needs to know this child that's being forced to do it is 100% a victim.
But see,
100%.
it's not her. It's frickin' frack and pumpkin and
All of them, right? And
choker. But
all
but
of them are
she
victims.
but she feels responsible.
Of course she does, right? And that's why it's so valuable what you're doing, Diana, because unless somebody can speak truth, objective truth from the outside in, she's stuck with herself. And so of course she's going to feel like she did this. So for instance, that's where it's invaluable, you and I working together, because what's also interesting, the other part of my background, working in a prison, I can tell you these adults should be in prison now. I can also tell you this. Let's pretend there was a good law enforcement raid led by Chris. I really like the feel of that. Okay, so let's say you have that busted in that room, and the
Yeah, they
question is
wouldn't have.
this. Okay, and let's say they weren't going to arrest anybody, they would shoot all the perpetrators, those
Yeah.
that were responsible. And the question is this. Who do you think would be shot being a perpetrator and who wouldn't?
The adults would be. I believe the
Okay,
children would not
let's
be.
pretend we didn't know who this child was with the knife. Would that child have been shot?
I don't think so, no.
Why?
Well, because you don't know better. They would see that that is not normal or natural, that it had to have been trained.
And forced and coerced.
Yeah, that it had to
100%.
have been, made to occur because children don't think about sex and they don't
There you go.
think about killing and unless they're saturated in pornography and snuff films, I mean, they know it's just not part of their consciousness.
There you go. And that'll be really important to let sink in that if law enforcement had busted in, all the children, including Fatty and uh,
Frickin' frickin'
Joker and Frick and Frack, and all
frickin'.
of them would have been helped, right? They would never have had handcuffs put on them.
Well, yeah, and they would have been debriefed and
That's
gone
right.
through therapy and helped.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what comes to mind when I see this.
So this is next. This was me being, raped both ways. And the funny thing was is the hair came about. This hair you'll see in the
So,
next picture,
so there is,
the guy with the same hair.
so somebody has a sense maybe of who that is.
I think so, yeah. Because here's me, Pumpkin, hitting this body. Here's what came first was the lighting, the camera, then the brown skinned person being raped, then me hitting the person, then the camera, and then the pumpkin over the head. Because it was a body, but I was being told it's just smashing pumpkins.
Yeah.
So I saw pumpkins.
Do you think that group by that name was part of all this?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about them.
Okay. It's called Smashing Pumpkin. I always wondered who.
Yeah, well, they didn't come into being until what, the 90s or something? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not musically inclined. I don't know much about the industry or any of that. So, um,
I can see that the victim is blindfolded.
oh yeah, something important came up and then it submerged again. I think I'll probably catch it again.
It'll come up.
And this was, yeah, see the same guy with the same hair. He's now running the camera. We're outside. That's, like grass and weeds and stuff. And I'm slicing open a person. This picture evolved with this body first. Well, actually, the grass, and then the camera, then the man, then the body, then me without this person. And then finally, this person came in last. And as I look at the picture, I realize it was me cutting like their heart, because that's where your arms are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then them falling dead.
The guy with the, do
The
you think it's
hair.
do you think it's curly hair or do you think it's long hair?
I think it's
Or-
short,
Oh,
stiff hair.
oh,
You know what I mean? The kind
yeah.
that would stand up. It's like maybe an inch tall.
Okay.
Like a
Now,
military cut. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like a military cut.
is he saying bueno?
No, bravo.
Oh,
Perfect.
bravo, bravo.
Bravo. Well done. Yeah. I can't, maybe it is bueno. No, it's bravo.
Okay. I was going to say
Um,
because bueno would seem,
yeah, that's
bilingual.
Hispanic. Yeah. And then this is after, I've got blood on my hands. The boat captain's taking money from someone in a robe. It's pretty much that. And I'm not feeling good about it because I got blood on my hands. And then the boat ride home, it's morning. It's not even, the sun's not up. You know how you get that tiny pink
Yeah, yeah.
in the sky as the sun's coming up?
And they made you go back in the boat with blood on your hands.
I don't think I physically had blood on my hands, but I
Okay.
felt like I had blood on my hands.
Yeah.
But you'll notice the boat's empty. There's no children. It's just me being raped by the captain. He's got money in his pocket. Now, here's what's interesting about this photo or sketch. Last night, Chris was he was having some beers, nothing out of control or anything, but he came in about 8 o'clock and started watching TV and talking. He had some calls from work, so he's dealing with that. I was dozing off at 8 o'clock, which I thought was really unusual because I usually don't get tired till about 9 or 10. But I was just dozing off listening to the satanic guy, believe it or not. And so I thought, well, I need to go to bed. So I went in my room and I thought, and as I'm walking in there, I realized that each time I've gotten tired or sleepy at an unusual time is because I was about to have a memory. So I
Yep.
thought, well, why don't you just sit in front of the sketchbook? And so all these sketches came. So this was the last one. So I drew the water, I drew the boat, I drew me, and then Chris walked in the room. And he saw this picture without this person and without the sky. He says, "Oh, I could see that. You got a boat in the water." And he started talking about, well, he says, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, what's that person doing hanging out?" He said, "Did the motor stop working and they're paddling?" And I didn't say anything because I thought, well, you haven't seen the rest of the picture yet. So I'm holding this in my mind because that was the next thing I was going to draw was the guy. And I thought it was fascinating that he walked in right at the point where it was just someone hanging out on a boat. So for him, it was an innocuous picture in my mind. And I kept thinking, well, should I tell him? Should I finish the sketch while he's here? Because he sat in there and talked for like 10 or 15 minutes. And I thought, no, he's not going to be receptive. He'll probably get angry, and then I'm going to have to deal with his anger. And so I was
Yeah.
just like, no, I just kind of took the sketch and I put it on the floor and kind of moved it out of his vision and, let him talk about what he wanted to talk about. But then when he got up and left, I finished it and it was based, and that's why you'll see the motor here. As he was sitting there talking, it didn't have a motor. I said, oh yeah, I got to put the motor and the propeller in. And I said, I always forget what the motor looks like. And I made it like ovalish. He said, no, it's square. So I made it square.
He's he's helping you. Well,
Yeah,
they do have oval motors,
I know. I was just, anyway. But yeah, after he left, then I drew the empty seats, the captain with the money, and then the sky. I knew this was just before sunrise as we were going back to that school. And so this morning I'm sitting here thinking, well, how was Dad able to take us away on a Saturday morning? Maybe he took Angie and Mary back home. I don't know. But I didn't get home until the next morning,
Yeah.
and it would have to be sunrise because it was an hour's drive.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what would Mom have thought was, or did Dad do more of his, mumbo jumbo with her? Well, you fed them. Well, yeah, that's right. This went through my mind this morning. Was he said, well, don't you remember making a meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy last night? And blah, 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 blah. And I would have no sleep, so I would wind up sleeping the day away, or at least a few hours, right? And then I thought, well, if I was my mom standing in the refrigerator looking at the hamburger that's uncooked and still there,
Yeah.
but Dad is programming me saying, you made meatloaf and fed it to the children last night. There has to be this fight going on in her brain.
Right.
Well, if I made meatloaf, why is the meat still there? So she must have had a lot of insanity happening in her head.
Right. I mean, talk about the definition of gaslighting.
I know.
That's right out of
Yeah.
the movie. That's just right out of the movie. Yes.
Yeah. And I think, God, my poor mom. I mean, poor me, Angie and Mary, yes, but my poor mom, and God bless her that she finally was able to just get out of there, to just leave him, to I think the last year, my 11th year, he was out of the house and there was no more abuse. I was thinking the abuse went through my 11th year, but I think it stopped my 6th grade. I think I was able to go through 6th grade in peace. Kind of.
So when your dad remarried, and I'm sorry, what is her name? What's your,
Ruth. Yeah, Ruth. Let me
did you
see.
say Ruth had daughters?
She had 3 children. I think it was a boy, a girl, and a boy. And Angie had told me, how do I guess I'll stop share. There it is. Angie had told me that somewhere along the line, when I think his name was Michael, the youngest boy, that there was some accusations or things being thrown around that Dad may have hurt Michael, abused him, maybe around 14-ish, 16-ish age. And Angie volunteered that one day. I didn't ask. I didn't try. I had no idea what was going on there, and I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. It was my dad's life, and I could care less. But one day Angie offered it up, and I went, "Really?" And she goes, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, that doesn't sound odd to you?" And she just kind of went click, click, and changed the subject and went somewhere else. And I thought, well, I'm not getting anywhere with that, So, but I asked her about it, I think maybe when when in the past 3 years, as Mom was there and I'd go visit because I'd run into Angie more, three times a year at least. But I said, whatever happened with that thing with Michael and Ruth and Dad and all that? And she goes, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And I said, well, didn't you tell me that there were rumors that Dad may have abused Michael? No, I don't know what you're talking about. So it got completely submerged. And I was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere with that. So I left
So
it alone.
is it that the abuse surfaced as far as the kid was willing to verbalize it at age 14, but it happened earlier?
I have no idea. None. I just know. I think, oh, geez.
Yeah, do you have a sense of the kid's ages when your dad married her, Ruth?
I don't know, but I guess I could call Angie and ask her, but
No, well,
I
I mean,
could
if you
call
feel
Ruth
inclined,
and ask Ruth, but she's okay. Here, we can do the math right now. She said they were married for 40 years. My dad died in 2020. So that means they would have gotten married 1980,
yep,
which would have made me in the 10th grade. I would have been 15. So I just I maybe they were around the same age as us. I don't know. Honestly, I don't
you
know.
know, you don't know the age difference between your dad and Ruth, or you wonder how old Ruth is now.
I think they're only 2 or 3 years apart. Um, I guess I could call and ask her. I called her. I think I told you I called her once, and yes, let me give me my condolences, my dad's passing, blah blah blah, because I didn't want to alienate her. I thought I could at least do that. They were married for 40 years, and she mailed me some stuff, those pictures you saw. She's the one that mailed those to me. And but I asked her for my cousin Cheryl's phone number and then my dad's business partner's phone number. She sent me Dennis Hill, that's his business partner of like 30 or 40 years, but she never sent Cheryl's. So that's when I think you and I had our like first or second session, and I called her back and said, do you know anything about Dad's military history? And could you please send me Cheryl's number? You didn't send it the first go around. And she says, yeah, I've been meaning to go through some of your dad's stuff. It's been 3 years now, and blah, blah, blah. I need to go through it and get rid of it, and blah, blah, blah. She said, I'll send you whatever I think, you know, whatever I run into. I said, anything having to do with the military would be great. And any, maybe old phone books, address books, phone books. I said, I'll be happy to take those. And haven't that's been what, like a month or 6 weeks now. Nothing's arrived. Now, granted, I'll give her this. The first phone call, it took about 4 or 6 weeks for the stuff to arrive. So I don't know if she's just tired or lazy or procrastinates or what, but so
Well,
something might show up and it might not. But I think if I called and asked her about ages and this and that, I don't know if she would think I was picking her brain for nefarious reasons, which would be the truth, but
right, right,
nefarious for her, but not for me.
correct.
So
Well,
I don't know
sure.
if she,
Go with whatever, right? You gotta go with whatever seems
yeah,
to.
I think I'll talk to Angie about it first, and then maybe I'll call Ruth again and just say, I was wondering if you found anything and if you were able to pack it up. Maybe just a reminder. She may have forgot because she's got to be 80 years old now too. So
There had to have been, I mean, think about who your mother was married to.
I know, and he's not going to change his stripes.
There you go. So it had to have been a relief for Ruth to be done with him.
Sure, yeah. And I thought too that
But he probably found somebody
dad,
just as dissociative.
well, maybe she talked about how they had met. She was in the Kiwanis Club and had met through a friend. And I thought, oh, well, you're part of those club people. So you've probably got some sort of, I mean, if for like 60 years, she was a member of this club that dad was comfortable with because dad was a member of his clubs or whatever. And I thought, well, she's a Stepford wife then. She had to,
There we go. There we go.
she had to have some idea. But the thing that I realized about dad is he was trading me. My training was paid for by him trafficking me, right? That's how I was able to go to the school, was that I paid for it by being raped and by going to these mansions, by doing these jobs that paid for my training, right? So I thought, well, dad spends 4 years of his time, energy, resources. Granted, he's making a little money on the side, he's getting drugs on the side, but the bulk of the funding, the money, he didn't see because it was to pay for the training. So he was investing in me long term. He wasn't expecting my mom to leave him. He wasn't banking on her leaving him. He was banking on me turning into a teenager and being an assassin for this group of people because that's what I was doing, right? And so when mom divorced him, all of that crumbled and fell apart. So he must have just been furious and irate because he had invested all this time and energy. He was trying to get in with these well-to-do people. He wanted to go from the lower level jackass to a higher level psychopath, whatever, you know, but all of it got ruined, right? And so he loses his meal ticket to whatever goal he had. And then all of a sudden he runs into Ruth. So what does he do with all of that rage and pissed off and anger and all that? I mean, I know how Chris is about his ex-wives. You know, they're evil witches, you know. So my mom had to have turned into an evil witch, and Ruth bought into that, and whatever. But I got to thinking that's probably why dad, when mom divorced dad, it took a year. I guess dad hassled her and did all sorts of bad things, enough bad things for mom to be able to go back to the judge and say, look, I need to move out of state with my children and I need your permission because he's doing X, Y, and Z. And we've had a whole year of proof that is in your lap, because a judge wouldn't just do that willy-nilly. He would have to have proof. So dad must have been just losing his mind during that year, enough for the judge to be able to give mom permission to leave the state, which most judges won't do. And then dad was caught at the state line. Mom told me this. She said, the day that we moved, she said, I found out that your dad was stopped at the state line by the police and he had guns in his car, in his trunk. So he was following us, coming after us with guns. Like, was he going to kill mom or just intimidate her? What was he planning to do? And also that somebody knew and was able to tell the police to be able to get there and stop him. And I think that might have been our neighbor.
Was he arrested? He had to have been arrested.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, because when we moved to Iowa, we still talked to him on the phone from time to time. Maybe once a month he'd call, or I think at first it was maybe once a week. So I think maybe he was stopped, but not
So he
prosecuted.
would still initiate the calls.
I think so. Yeah. Mom never did. Never. And we were always reluctant to talk to him at all. And I think I told you his parents would send mom checks in the mail for our birthdays and Christmas, and they'd be for 25 cents or 50 cents, right? Like, it's like they're rubbing it in our face or something. So, but I just got to thinking he must have been just losing his mind, because he spent 4 years going through all this training and all the gaslighting of mom and the shuffling of children and hiding his tracks and and all that madness to get me to be able to be some sort of assassin at some level, so that he could be raised up in his cult or whatever. And I thought he must have really lost it. And maybe that's what the whole gun thing at the border was about. But I'm having this vague recollection of mom telling me that the Emanueles were a family that we lived the second house from the end on this side of the street. The Emanueles lived about 4 houses in from the other end of the block on the opposite side. And there was 4 boys. The oldest one was like 10 years older than the rest, so he was off in college. But we grew up with the 3 youngest boys, and we would play with each other. And the Emanueles, like Joe, the youngest, was in love with Angie. Bob, the middle one, was in love with Mary. None of them were in love with me, and I wasn't in love with any of them. So Mike and me were kind of the oddballs. But so there was always this connection. I always considered them my brothers, right? Because they were very protective. And there was one time dad was about to abuse me in my room, and he was just getting started. And I remember Joe was walking up to the back door of the house and came around the side past that window. And I think he was whistling and making noise and hollering back at his brother right as he walked past the window where dad was abusing me. And when that happened, dad backed off and stopped and left the room, because he knew Joe was about to come to the back door. And so I always considered Joe like my white knight. Even though he didn't know what he did, I always felt close to him. And years later, probably 15 years later, he and I dated for a year. And we were friends. We're probably up until February. We've been friends and chatted with each other. But I told him, I said, I need to stop being friends with you because Chris doesn't like it, and I wanted to respect Chris's wishes and yada yada. So I think I hurt his feelings, but anyway, so the Emmanuel, when mom divorced dad, I believe it was the Emanueles. I think it was Bob and Joe, maybe Bob and Mike, the two older ones. Somehow they caught wind of it, and I think they were the ones that notified the police. If my recollection is right from what mom told me, I think she told me that Bob and Mike caught wind of what dad was going to do. I think because they were kind of that last year when mom was divorced, they became our protectors. They were like, they patrolled our house from time to time because they were now 16-ish and they had, a father and a family who, knew some I don't want to say they had mob connections, but they knew the score. They were streetwise and didn't take any crap. And they
Wonder if they saw
loved
him
us.
loading weapons in the vehicle.
I don't know, but I think that somehow they got wind of it, notified the police, and that's how dad was stopped at the border. Because and years later, they also helped mom. Oh, this is also part of it. I was in the army by, no, I was not. They helped us move down there with the U-Haul truck. I think Bob drove the truck. And it must have been Bob somehow got in touch with Mike because he was the older one. And maybe Mike saw or smelled or sensed something. And yeah, because when we got to Iowa and I was 18, I joined the army. Then mom moved her and my sisters back to Milwaukee. The Emanuelis came down there and helped her move again. So they've always been very protective of us. Angie and Mary blew them off. Once they got 20 and, started having their own lives, they just thought they were pieces of shit. And I never felt that way. Yeah, they lived in a house that was dirty. There was no women to take care of this house. They're, a little bit of hoarders. They're bachelors, and they're not, they're half American Indian and half Italian. And they work in the construction industry. Yeah. And so they had that rebellious nature, I think, because they had a little bit of a connection to the mob and a little, that half of their bloodline Indians that don't want to conform to the white man's ways. And so they're just very unique characters. And I never blew them off. Anytime I ever went to Milwaukee, I would go spend time with them. And like I said, Joe and I would talk 2 or 3 times a year up until just this past February. So, and I feel bad now. And the reason I did that was when I went to Melissa's house in February, I was telling her the story about how Joe walked past and saved me from my dad in that one moment. I said, so there was always a part of me, there's a part in there that considers Joe my hero. And Melissa said, well, you do understand that it's your husband now that should be your hero. You can't keep Joe as a standby or a stand-in or a whatever. And she was also explaining that how when you're married, that there can be only one man in your world, in your life.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but
And yeah, and so
maybe
I
down the
sent Joe a
road.
text and I said, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I can't be your friend anymore. And now as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing that might have been misguided. But Alan conveyed to her that a man's man will, you can only have one. I'm not explaining this very well,
It's okay. I understand, right? It just,
but I'm
you
thinking
know,
I'm gonna have Scott as a friend. Why can't I
uh,
continue to have Joe as
right.
a friend?
The question is who has our heart, and when we're married, can we, it really depends upon my affections and my loyalty. Okay, my
Right,
affections.
right. Yeah.
So, like, depending upon when we meet someone, I mean, if they've had a life prior to that, and see
Well, of
it,
course you could. And I told Chris, see, Chris would always throw a fit. Well, not always, because he didn't, I never let him know when I talked to Joe. And when Joe called, I would erase in case Chris looked at my phone, which he never does, but I just thought, just in case. But I was talking to Chris about Joe once in the very early part of our relationship. And Chris just lost his mind. And so from that point forward, I never let Chris know that we were chatting. And like I said, sometimes we'd only talk once a year. But the past 4 or 5 years, it's been maybe 3 times a year, you know. But
well, that's, that'll be something that hopefully, as you pray about it and as things unfold, that, if down the road you
yeah,
decide
yeah.
to
I'm just sitting
reconnect,
here realizing that that's really it's like spitting in his face because we've been friends he's my oldest friend. We've known each other since I was
okay.
5,
Well, so
you
pray about
know?
it. And there's nothing, it's sort of the elephant in the middle of the room in a way where you can say, you know what, I've just been conflicted. You're a friend. I didn't want to uh, cause my husband, and I had heard that maybe I shouldn't have friends, but you know what, that's silly. So if you're
Yeah,
okay with
yeah.
it, let's still keep talking. And
I think I will, yeah. Because what happened was then I think after I sent him that text, he then called Angie a day or two later and told her what was going on. Now, remember that Joe has been in love with Angie since they were 5, right? But Angie thinks he's disgusting and awful and anyway, so Angie calls me up and says, "Well, what happened there?" So I explained, and she says, "Well, that's bullshit because now I'm going to have to talk to him." So it wasn't even about what was good, it was all about how it affected her. And I
right,
was like, whatever. But
yeah,
yeah. And here's the thing with Angie and Joe. Like I said, Joe's been in love with her since they were 5. And Angie is so structured and controlled, and everything has to be
yeah,
just
she
so.
has to be. That's right. That's
And
right.
Joe is the complete opposite. And I thought to myself, if they had gotten together in their early 20s, maybe 18, 19, they would have been a perfect balance for each other. He would have become a little
If
more
they survived,
structured.
if they
Right.
didn't kill each
He would
other.
have become a little more structured. She would have become less structured. They could have really balanced each other out, but Angie just couldn't. He doesn't tick off the boxes of what he's not clean. Nah, he's this, he's that, he smokes. She needs this perfect, guy. And I'm trying to explain to her the perfect guy doesn't exist, you know. And I was at her house once and we were watching a movie. After going through 8 movies, we'd watch 2 or 5 minutes of it. I don't like that. Switch to another one. Watch 5 or 10. I don't like that. So finally, we wind up on a rated PG, like Harlequin romance, or what do they call it? A Hallmark romance kind of thing, right? So it's PG, and it's about this girl who's her brother has a best friend, and this best friend's been in love with her since they were 5, right? And she can't be bothered because he's a loser, but now they're adults. He's a doctor, right? But leaves the profession, doesn't share why. And she's losing, she just comes out of anyway. So the end of the movie, they wind up together and to discover that he's going blind, and that's why he's not a doctor and whatever. And so the next morning, she kind of gets all melancholy. And she goes, "Why can't I get a romance like in that movie last night?" And I go, "Really, Angie? Really?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, he was in love with her since they were kids." And I said, "And Joe doesn't come to mind?" I said, "Joe still would have you." And I hate to get personal, but like I said, I dated Joe for a year when I was in my 20s. He's a great lover. That's exactly what you need. Anyway, and I looked at her finally and I said, "You do understand that that's fiction, right?" And she just lost it. she just lost it and started screaming at me. Oh, of course I know that's fiction. She just, and we had this huge blow up. And I'm like, I said, the very thing that you're pissing and moaning about wanting, you have in the palm of your hand right now. I said, I don't think it would work between them right now, but it might have worked when they were in their 20s and they could have worked it out. But but yeah, she goes through a lot of she since mom has died, she has dated 4 different people. None of them have worked out. Or actually, so the first 3 screwed her over, and now she's on a 4th guy who she thinks might work out. And I hope it does. I asked God, I said, once I realized she had 4 COVID shots and she was probably going to die soon. Maybe she won't, I don't know. But I said, God, if you could bring her the love of her life before she dies, that would really be a good thing. She keeps going through these guys. Like the first one wound up being just like an online thing, who wound up asking her for money ultimately. And she called me and said, what do you think? I said, no, this guy's conning you for money. If he's got $1 million house in Florida and he needs help, he needs $2,000 help with a vet bill, as he's got a $1 million house, he should not be asking you for any money at all. I said, this is a con. This is a con man trying to scam you. So she finally got a grip and told him to get lost. But it hurt her, it hurt her feelings, and I get that. And then the next guy, she thought he was just awesome. They dated, in person for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. They finally had sex. He wound up premature ejaculating and then just ghosted her the next day. And she just thought he was the one. They were, gonna get married, whatever, after a month. So now she's with another guy who she met, I think, 2 weeks ago. And he's like half Hispanic, half white, but he can't speak Spanish. He's more of a white person than a Hispanic person. But I said, "Ooh, you got a Latin lover." So they're making out and all that. They haven't done the deed yet, but he invited her to Las Vegas at the end of the month. He's paying for everything. And she always freaks out when a man wants to pay. And I go, Auntie, you need to get used to that. I said, real men want to do that. Real men like to do that. It's just a part of their makeup. They feel proud to provide for their woman, and so she has to always, okay, I'll accept it, like, so yeah, that was one thing that blew me away about Chris at first too, is how he paid for everything. Because, when you're a single woman, you're used to taking care of yourself. Plus, I had boyfriends too who I wound up making more money than they did and paid for everything. And so, but yeah, that's what she's going through right now. But he sounds like a nice guy. His name's Ray. I don't know why I'm talking about her, but
It's okay. Hopefully in time.
I
Yeah.
keep imagining that whatever man she connects with and hopefully gets married to down the road, hopefully this guy works out. And I keep imagining having a conversation with him saying, look, you need to understand this about her. She may not ever remember it. She may not ever admit it. She may not, and you can never use this against her in an argument, but this was our childhood. And she is a wounded child. And you've got to realize and recognize that without using it as a weapon ever or forcing anything ever, but you need to know. And because she can get really out of control angry,
Yeah, right.
and self-protective. and push
Yeah.
you away.
Mhm.
And so if you really love her, you need to understand this. And but I worry that, you know how people get when they're angry, they'll bring up anything to be hurtful. And I'm like, I don't want that to be a weapon ever. So, but it's
So
like,
you haven't launched yet.
no, I need to put a first video up. And so I know at the first one I showed you, the second one was beating up Ted. The third and fourth one, I thought, why don't I put up the interviews I did with Melissa, the 2 interviews, and just so that I'll do like a little intro saying I thought that if you wanted to know a little bit more about me, you could listen to these, kind of introduce myself that way as well, and then the fifth video could be where I start diving into this stuff and the parts. And also, see, and I just lost it.
That's okay.
Like,
It'll come
there's
back.
some parts
Hey,
that are really,
let me ask this because what you shared about Gray has been heavy on my heart,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
what was interesting, and I'll tell you when I have a chance now to listen to, I'm getting back into exercise, so that's when I'm able to listen to stuff as well as when I do the red light.
That's when I watch my shows too. When I'm riding my bike or
There
do
you
the
go.
red light, I'll
There
listen.
you go.
Yeah.
So red light, I can't watch anything, of course. And then the challenge is, can you stay awake because it lulls you into
I
the.
know. Yes, it does.
So, but
Yeah.
I started listening to it, or I was listening to it, probably in and out of consciousness. That's a subliminal thing.
Oh, Grace
But
thing?
what was interesting, so I just thought, well, I might as well give you some feedback. Because especially, you know, if if you say anything about Gray, which you need to say whatever you need to say, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
Melissa is going. So it was interesting not watching. So I'm just listening because
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously sitting
That's
under the
very
red light.
different. Yeah, it's very different to just listen to something.
And so I'm not going to say that what you said, because in looking at him, so here's my take on it. Now, I'm not settled in my take on it, but just
Hmm.
it was interesting. It was interesting as I'm just listening. If I didn't, because I'm not watching him, I didn't. So it's different when you're just listening to him because then it's not the shock value of that stupid mask.
Yeah. 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 The information is fine.
So that's why.
It
So
was
for
the
the first
theater.
time,
Yeah.
okay. So for the first time when I was just listening to it, I thought, oh, okay. I wonder if he wasn't trying to trigger, but I'm not contradicting you whatsoever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, because I was really, but I'm nodding in and out kind of thing, but I was really listening for any sort of subliminal.
Well, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So it may be, maybe you listen to it while you're not watching, because here's my take on it.
It's
But
that it's a part. I thought of that too. Maybe it's one of his parts.
well, and here's what I'm thinking, but I don't want you to feel persuaded one way or the other because of what I'm now saying.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
giving you, a little more to think through. Um, So if you can separate out content from visual, now the question is, why would he do that? And I could see a scenario because I've worked with, kids in the system. Now I'm not equating him with a kid in the system,
Hmm.
but there can be a part that sort of like in your face shock value, just trying to agitate somebody.
Yeah,
And
that's the vibe I got. Yeah.
so the question then is that does that mean he's a part of them, or does it mean that he's just that one part is sort of in your face, here's who I am, and um, kind of like the bad boy kind of. So I don't know
Yeah,
the
I don't
for
know.
me for me the jury's still out,
Me
but that's not
too. Yeah, but
yeah.
I'm just not gonna watch any more of his stuff. It's just I don't know. I just felt toyed with.
See, but that's still legitimate. It's important to continue to think through it because if you're still going to do stuff with Melissa, if you say anything about Gray, obviously that's probably going to,
Oh, no, no,
but
no,
that's
no.
not a
I
reason
don't.
not to, right? So you need to
Yeah,
go with
no,
what
I
you
just,
think is
well,
great.
it's like today, as I was watching, I was riding my bike, I was watching the Imagination podcast, and she was interviewing a woman who was a psychiatrist helping people, or a psychologist, I forget. But I thought, here again is a woman who is claiming to be on God's side and saved and using God's energy, but she's talking about doing energy work, which
Oh, yeah,
is a
yeah,
form of witchcraft.
right.
And I was like,
See, I think your take on it is right. I don't think Emma's a Christian. And so she reads the prayer, which is very Christian.
it
Uh,
is. I
so I
thought for
think it's a
sure she was a
non-Christian
Christian.
praying a
But
prayer.
she's open to anything and everything. And she has mentioned that. And I thought, well, okay. But so here's the psychologist. She's like 60 years old talking about doing energy work. And she's talking about that her clients, that she doesn't get into the trauma part and doesn't do healing with trauma. She just does this energy work. And then she moves on with her stories. She's talking about something else. And now she's crying, right? But I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't see any tears, number one. I
Oh,
thought, well, I just saw myself videotape myself and I got choked up and I'm doing this, and I needed to go get a tissue eventually because the crying, fills up your nose. Not with this woman. She just went right on with what she was saying. And just not even a blink. But 2 minutes ago, you were just crying. So
oh,
I
yeah.
thought, that's a psychopathic move. Number one, to pretend you're crying, but to not have, I learned that a while ago is psychopaths will pretend that they're crying, but there's no
Yeah.
physical manifestation. So I'm looking for it. Okay, you're crying and you're boohooing and you're doing energy work and you're talking about Satan, the bad guy, and God, the good guy, but you're practicing witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, God bless Emma, but she's interviewing people who are still stuck in their parts. They're still, like the one woman who's a yoga teacher. I'm like, someone needs to tell her you're practicing Satanism
And
because
that's the whole thing. She's going to end up damaging her own credibility by virtue of having
I
this
know. And I'm
hodgepodge.
like, dang, she's got, I think, a really good heart, but I had no idea she wasn't a Christian. And here's another thing. Even Chris noticed this. Emma's background? There's a picture of a cross on its
Oh,
side
I asked about
with
that.
the SS.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is that? Excuse
Okay.
the
I
language.
actually asked her about that because somebody
Chris
asked.
saw that and he's like, what's the SS business
Yeah,
about?
you know what? I should have been. She then immediately said, "Oh, it was my previous site about support survivors." And
Oh,
apparently, that's
well,
supposed
all
to be the
right.
cross,
But
but still, maybe. I mean,
it's
she needs
just a
to.
bad symbol to have hanging out there.
Yeah,
I like the little pillow with the love and the heart and the whatever, but I'm like, I get stuck looking at that thing going, SS. Makes me think of Hitler.
yeah.
I think she's just really unaware of symbolism. And I think a lot of people are drawn into the new age thinking it's all cool and good. But they don't understand that the new age and new age practices are satanic.
Absolutely, they are.
They don't, and I think that's where Emma's stuck. She doesn't know that. But I think if she were to know it and start screening her people, she'd probably lose three-quarters of them. And I don't think that's her mission. I think she wants everyone
They
that
have a
she can
platform.
possibly gather, which I understand, but I don't know. I'm conflicted about it.
Well,
Still,
she's not going to have, if she's not a Christian, she's not going to have discernment, and that's where.
Yeah.
Well, you know, right? You and I are working together, and you already have a sense of probably, well, not that it's conscious, but I just take a very methodical approach. I'm not going to go into energy stuff, guided imagery.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have one client that I think was anticipating that because she has been familiar with her parts, but she has wanted me to now her husband, bless her heart, been doing a great job. They've been together for years, and he's accepted these parts. And so they'll have prayer sessions, and he'll have the parts come up and talk, which is pretty amazing for a husband. It's a very
Yeah.
rare situation.
Oh, is it rare? Okay, because Chris
Yeah.
doesn't want to know anything.
No, it's very, very rare. So Chris is pretty much typical, right? Because
Oh,
too
okay,
close
that's
to
good
home.
to know. I kept
Yeah.
thinking, should I be worried about that? But
No, because it's too close to home. If I find out my own
oh
wife was
yeah,
raped, right? You want to go kill the perpetrators and you want to go do damage. And so
yeah,
right, so it's just
yeah,
too hard because a real guy,
yeah,
as you say, wants to protect and provide and all that. But I think she has wanted me to speak through her to the parts. And I'm just, if a part wants to come up and talk, more happy to. But I
well,
just,
it needs to be conscious, doesn't it?
well,
Yeah,
it does, but you kind of have to go through a phase, in my estimation, you have to go through a phase where you are unconscious first, or have experienced that, where a part then is able to come up very spontaneously. So, because, and talk about the wall. So, in a way, the
hmm
wall has to
hmm
come down so that the person, the core person can, or the primary person can get to a point, so it'd be you, can get to a point where you sense very quickly in the here and now on a go forward basis. So let's say Pumpkin needed to, or I'm sorry, yeah, Pumpkin, right? Or Smasher.
yeah, pun can't like a punk. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. So
yeah.
Pumpkin, sorry about that.
No, that's
So
okay.
like if Pumpkin needed something or wanted to share something with you, that very easily you can tap into her, right?
Yeah.
So that in the here and now, so as you guys are moving through your day, they have free access to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So that's really the
I
goal.
tell them that. Yeah,
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
But if for that particular client, I just, if a part wants to come up and talk, absolutely, right?
sure. Yeah.
But to try to almost allow a client to get in an altered state, I want to stay away from.
Yeah, I agree because that's yeah, I don't even know why, but yeah, I
Because you
want
were just
to be
talking about
conscious of
Emma.
what's going on.
Yeah,
Because if you're hypnotized or doing that, then
yeah.
it's
Matter of fact,
like you don't have any.
even reading more of what the false memory foundation, these people would accuse therapists of, uh,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
they could implant anything they wanted to.
there you go. There you go. So I
Yeah,
want
like
anybody to have the comp.
Scientology
There you
or
go.
any of that. Yeah.
So I want anybody that I work with just to have the confidence in knowing that whatever comes up,
It's because it wants to.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and my parts, I invite them. I said, please come look at through my eyes, look and see where we live, how we live. Here's my dog, here's my bed, our bed. Said, live in the present time with me, please. You don't have to be stuck back there.
And that's a beautiful thing
Mhm.
also to make a note of for yourself as one thing even to talk about. What are some
Oh
of the things
yeah.
helpful? So I'd recommend, in one of your recordings,
Yeah,
share
yeah.
that.
That's yeah. But I don't know. I have a hesitation. I need to tell Chris that I'm going to be doing this. But I know his like after I told you about Gray, later on in the day, I said, yeah, I had a really great session with John. I said, and I exposed somebody. And Chris right away was defensive and well, what do you mean? You didn't go out there on YouTube and blah, blah. I said, no, I just talked to John about it. And he goes, oh, okay. But for him to now know that I'm going to be on YouTube talking to people, I don't know that he's going to be happy about that. I mean, I've always recommended him to do it because he's got the voice for it. And, for him to do like these camping videos or survival stuff or whatever. So I
Right.
think he'd be great at it. But I never once imagined myself doing it until 2 weeks ago, you know? So I think he's gonna be like freaked out. So I think it's another
Okay,
hesitation.
well, then in a way, sooner rather than later,
I gotta talk to him about
you're
it.
gonna maybe right just
Before I launch, or should I just launch? I
now
mean,
I now I based on what you just said, I would float the idea, even though you're gonna do this.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
but I need him to get
and
used to
so
it. Yeah.
let him give him some time. Now, how much time? But maybe start with, hey, since our last conversation, I need to share with you. I need to ask because I'm feeling the Lord really wants me to do this,
Yeah.
but I want I would love it if you're on board. And so I want you to think about what would you think of if I did this? And so you anticipate, right, the same kind of response. But now that he knows you're seriously thinking about it,
Yeah.
then it'll force him to have to really wrestle through.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like the thing with Scott was I told Scott, I said, I need to talk to my husband about interacting with him, being friends with you, because he doesn't like me to have male friends. I said, it's different because John recommended we talk to each other, but and Scott replied back and he says, you know what? I totally respect that. He said, when I was married, I hated it when my wife had a male friend. And she didn't care. She didn't respect me, blah, blah, blah. She just
See, the
wanted
guy,
men.
the guys need to lighten up. I mean, if Susan
I
Susan has
know.
male friends,
Well,
and
and
it
I
really,
told Chris,
yeah,
I asked Chris, I said, and he chewed on it. Here's the thing that annoys me about Chris is I could talk to him about something and say, well, think about it. Of course, you don't have to answer right in this second. And I know Chris takes a long time to think about things. But the problem is I have to chase him up about it. He doesn't come back to me after a week or 10 days and say, I've been thinking about it and here's my hesitations. No, he doesn't do that. He just stays silent and I have to chase him about it. So it makes me seem like an aggressor that blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so with Scott,
maybe
I
maybe in
brought it
this
up.
case, give him a proposed launch date.
Oh, so then he's got a deadline. Yeah.
A very natural one, and just say, you know what, let me tell you the process I've been going through. It's because I want to keep you in the loop because a lot of this is new for me. It's happening quickly within me.
Uh-huh.
So you talk
Yeah,
about
and
this.
I want to be able to share it with other people so that they can have some tips and tricks or whatever. If it helps them, great. If it doesn't, it's cathartic for me, basically, to just get it out there. But yeah, maybe I should wait till like June 1st. That would give him 2 weeks because that's how long it took him with Scott.
I
Or
Would you
maybe
feel
we should
okay
give him
about
a.
giving him a few extra weeks? And then you have material to work with.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just felt like you
Hey,
wanted me to push this quicker. So I
I'm sorry, you felt like I did?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's like,
no, let me clarify that.
oh, okay, good. Yeah, because I
No,
kept thinking
no, no,
I'll
no.
do it when I'm
No,
ready.
if you actually had a channel, I would love to see it. Meaning, I want you to know I'm
Oh no,
interested.
it exists. There's just nothing on it.
Okay, because if you were actually out there doing stuff and I didn't know, I wouldn't want you to think I wasn't interested. So that
Oh no, no, no.
okay,
I
okay.
just thought that, oh
No,
geez, I need to hurry
oh
up and
no, no,
get this
no,
out
no. You
there.
need to only when you're ready.
Okay.
right? And I think
All
you'll
right. Well
know.
then, so you think more than 2 weeks then for Chris?
I think for the meaning and the implications for Chris of something like this, which would be everything from here's what here's some of what has to be going through his mind as a guy, as a husband, which is kind of a couple things. One, he's being forced to realize somebody harmed you and he couldn't protect, even though it's an irrational thing,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, which is a good thing. Now,
Right, yeah,
because
but
he
he
hasn't dealt with
feels
his own,
helpless. Yeah,
there we go, right?
yeah.
So that's part, okay. Um,
And then he
so
hasn't dealt with his own stuff. I get
there we
that
go,
too. So it
right?
triggers all of his parts.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's going to be he's abdicating in the sense that other people will find out what you went through before he does, but he doesn't want to know what you went through because then it'll trigger his desire to
Uh-huh.
go kill somebody on your behalf. Um, right? And then it's going to force him, then he has one of two options. Either he learns ahead of time or he learns after, but either way, he's going to find out.
He's get, I mean, that's what I was saying. At some point, he has to confront this.
Okay.
And
So
just leave me.
each of those are the worst case scenarios for him. So,
I know, I
right.
know.
So he has one of two options. Either he starts drinking more and stops talking with you,
Yeah.
or he's going to become willing or be willing to become more vulnerable and risk. So that may take at least about 4 weeks for him to process
Okay,
through
so
that.
maybe I'll hit instead of June 1st or July 1st, that'd be like 6 weeks. Or,
That
I
that
guess I don't have to pick a day, but
Yeah, and that to me, well, you could tell him tentative launch date is July, whatever.
7/7 sounds nice. Or maybe the 4th of July. Yeah.
Okay,
Independence Day. Yeah.
okay. And I think that's probably for a guy who has as much stuff stuffed, though we're not going to feel sorry for him, but at the same time, um,
You have to
this is a,
acknowledge that it's there.
there you
Yeah.
go. So about a
Yeah.
month and a half would probably, and you can let him know that I would make myself available to him.
Okay.
We could even say this at no charge. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, we can. Okay.
Okay.
Because then it really removes um, any hindrance or any excuse or any right. So I'm offering, so you can tell him I'm offering a free 2 hour session to
Okay.
him, guy to guy, husband to husband, therapist to husband of a client, to
Yeah.
be able to process through. He can ask any questions he has about how he can be supportive of you. How does he process his own emotions? What would I suggest if I were the husband in his shoes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so there you go. That's
Okay.
another piece
All
in your
right.
arsenal when you tell him, okay, I've set a tentative launch date of July that I'm going to move forward. I feel compelled. Talked it over with Jon. Jon suggested I give you ample time to process, and if you'd like to, he's setting aside a block of 2 hours for free.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Chris, for
It
you
was funny this morning because I told Chris, I don't know, I think maybe Friday or whenever what was it, Susan asked me for the extra hour you did or whatever, and I agreed, and I told Chris, I said, well, on Tuesdays it's gonna be a 3 hour session instead of two, and so we'll start at 9. So he knew, right? But today rolls around and we got up, he actually slept in. I got up before him. Usually he'll be up before me and I'll hear him stirring and then I'll get up. But he says, "Oh, I'm gonna work from home today." And I went, "Okay. Well, just to let I have John from 9 to 12." I said, "So you can be in the office and I'll be out here, or I'll be or I'll be in the office. You could be out. Just let me know what you want to do." Well, you started getting all nervous and wound up restructuring his day and left 10 minutes before 9 o'clock.
yeah,
As I was out there taking him out, I'll carry his lunch bag out to the whatever vehicle he takes, and then I'll give him a kiss goodbye and come in. I got back in here at what was it, 8:59, and I was like, oh shit, I need to get the Zoom going. But he was planning on spending the day at home. until I told him that we had a session. And he was here once before when we had a session, the one when I was in the office and it was all dark. But I thought that was funny that he just wanted to disappear. So he like is hiding from you for some reason. But I'm sure it's because his parts don't want to interact with you. He told me he likes you and he has a level of respect for you, but he's running and hiding. Like he wouldn't put himself on camera and
Yeah,
whatever
that which was very, near the program. It just gave me additional kind of,
information. Yeah.
right?
So and plus he kept saying before our first session ever, well, you're not talking about me, right? You're not talking, he must have asked me that 3 or 4 times. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
and
we're
part of
talking
that
about
has to,
me.
as you shared, so part of that has to be from the negative experiences he had.
His parts there flip freaking out. Oh my God. You know?
Yeah, with the VA and his experiences with those.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his only idea of, okay, what happens in session.
Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't even know if he was with the VA, but he said he saw four different shrinks or five, and that he would just, I'm feeding the dog.
Yeah.
Um,
As a matter of
he-
fact, how about I'll go to the washroom.
okay, yeah, take your
There you
time.
go. That way I can be fully emotionally present.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I'll be right. Okay, well, I'm glad we've been talking about that. Plus, let me just really make sure you kind of know where I'm at as far as like you doing the channel. So I'm so glad
Yeah,
you
no, because you kept saying, have you launched? And I was like,
oh yeah, okay, so
okay.
wonderful. I mean, I'm glad because I'll tell you what was really going through my mind is part of me is wondering, are you sure you want to do this at this point in time? That's really where
Well,
so it's something that you need to be 100% settled for yourself. Yeah, I just wanted you to know that I wasn't aware of your channel. So if you had been doing it, I didn't want you to think I wasn't interested.
oh
So
no,
that's
no,
the only
no.
reason I was asking. But I think it'll be such a fantastic thing. But the timing you need to feel good about, is this the right time? Not that I'm doubting it or not. I mean, you're doing stellar work.
Well,
And
I think I do because of that spontaneous first video. It's like I was compelled to do it. And I thought, well, okay. And it didn't bother me. And so yeah, I think that's what I should be doing. So it's just the 2 times I sat down to actually publish something, I kept having this back off and I thought, well, okay, obviously I'm not ready yet, so I'll just wait. And I think my biggest hesitation is Chris. It's just Chris not, having he's gonna feel like his privacy is being invaded, I think.
well,
Because well, you're gonna see our garage and you're gonna see our kitchen, or our office. And I'm like, well, do we have something to hide here? I mean, what's the big deal? So I don't know. I hopefully we'll be able to talk about it and do that. I mean, because I just plan on sitting right here. So this will be the background or be in the garage from time to time and film that. But no, I'm not going to give a tour of our house or any of that. I just I want to put up my videos that I did for Alan's channel, the experiments, because I think that will help survivors understand that, why are we obedient to authority? Why do we conform? What is Pavlovian training? And here's how it affected me when I was being abused. This is how I was Pavlovian trained, and all these different experiments that were done at in the scientific levels were used on us survivors. And I think if people understood that, they wouldn't feel so when they're remembering their memory, they'll go, oh, that's what that is, rather than having a memory and going, what does that mean? They'll remember it and go, oh, I get it now. Like I'm experiencing. Because if I didn't know all those things, when I had my memories, if I didn't understand the symbolism, if I didn't understand all those experiments that I taught people about, I would be confused getting my memories. But I'm not confused because I know what I'm looking at. And that's what I want to convey to people is look, this is pervasive. This is worldwide. These are experiments that are done routinely on people. You know, the Ewan Cameron sleep deprivation and the psychic driving. That's what was done to my mother. You know, that's the gaslighting. You know, so I think that's what I want to bring in is what Alan Watt taught me. I want to forward and teach people that are survivors and remembering because it it will eliminates the confusion of what you're remembering. You know, so you might sketch something out and think, well, that's bizarre. But if you have the intellectual knowledge of, oh, that's what I'm looking at. Kind of like when I was showing you that one picture of me holding a baby. When I sketched it, I thought that baby was lying on the ground.
Okay, and that, by the way, is invaluable for you to even walk through those steps and how, like
Mhm.
the picture of the boat, as you say, okay, this emerged first,
And I
and then
might
this
even
was,
film myself doing the sketches. I don't know. I don't know if that'll take away the spontaneity or if my parts will feel like
yeah,
they're being invaded or
okay, that's right. You
what, but
only you'll have that sense, but it's still it may be enough just with that one picture for you to describe or on any picture.
mhm.
Okay, the picture that you're looking at, here are the stages that it happened.
Yeah, because I don't know what I'm gonna draw when I sit down. I just know something's gonna happen and then an image will pop in my head now.
Okay, and this, you know what? Let me ask you a question that may help then as you sit down and describe for people. So, and describe the feeling when you know because what you're doing is perfect. Okay, so let me just this will add. Okay, so if someone asks, okay, what do you mean the feeling? Like you have to draw. What does that feel like? What are you sensing? What are you getting when all of a sudden it's like, okay, I need to sit down? Or even with fatty, right? What you denied fatty, the means of channeling off the intensity.
Shoving it down. Yeah, yeah. Um, I think last night it was more about, and this has happened many times, is I'll sit down thinking I need a nap, but
And I've heard
intellectually
this multiple times, by the way.
knowing
Multiple
I
times.
don't need it, I slept enough, but it's like my subconscious
Yeah.
says, I'm taking over.
We're
You're
going to
gonna
go to sleep.
drop down. We're gonna go to sleep.
Okay,
But
Diana,
as
I'm
I
telling
as
you.
I drop into that moment,
Yeah.
bam, is when I'll get a rush of adrenaline with a memory.
If you fight, if you fight from going to sleep.
No, it's not fighting to drop off. It's just that I am
No,
dropping off. And right as
okay.
I get to that moment where you're going to be completely unconscious, it's like, bam. It's like the subconscious part says, it says, come down, come here, take a look at me. Yeah, okay. Now you're touching me. Whoosh, here's your memory. And I get a rush of it and I will wake up.
Because there are a number of survivors that a part will put them to sleep just before the memory's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about
Well,
feeling tired and then it shuts them down without the rush.
well, and last night, like I could have when I got up to and I told Chris, I said, I don't know why I'm so tired. It's only 8 o'clock. I'm gonna go to bed. That's what my intention was when I went in my room, and I thought the thought went through my head, it's only 8 o'clock. what's happening? And I thought, well, you've been tired before, and each time a memory will come. So why don't you just sit in front of your sketch pad?
Okay, that's a key then to mention that.
Yeah. And so I just
Okay.
sat down and went, okay. And I'm
So you
sitting
come
there,
to associate the tiredness with something, you're right
it's
on the
coming
threshold.
up. Something's
That's
coming.
going to be
Yeah.
super important to bring up.
Yeah, because I think if I don't do that and I allow myself to lay down and go to sleep, it's like, and this has happened a couple of times too. This is how Leach presented himself, was all of a sudden I'm laying there just about to be unconscious, and bam, there's a face right here physically, right there. Like, and then I realize it's not real. And I'm suddenly awake with all these memories flooding through. So it's like the part is drawing you down to their level. And once you touch that level, then they feel free to come up. For me anyway, if that makes sense. And so now that I've discovered that, okay, the sleepiness and intellectually knowing I've had enough rest, I can connect oh, okay, maybe there's memories coming up. And the fact that, oh, well, if I want to go get a candy bar, you know, and I'm full, or I want to eat, but I'm full, that's also a connection. So stuffing my face or falling asleep. Because when I went in my room, I thought, should I lay down? And something said, no, go get the sketch pad. And so I just sat there for probably 30 seconds or a minute, just staring at it, going, what? I was thinking, what? What do I draw here? And so I made a body. Okay, a stick person, you know. And I don't know what it's in. Then, oh, okay, we'll put another stick person over there, or make water, or make a boat, or whatever. And as you're doing that, it comes together, and you remember the whole moment is how it works for me. So
That's going to be invaluable to describe those steps.
yeah, I mean, because it's not like, well, this happens as well. It's like, as I've been interacting with Fatty and we've been having conversations, she's been showing me the movie cameras. She's been showing me that there were cameras and you have been filmed. And I thought, well, okay, maybe it was uh, pornography. I forget the word that's used for that. But I realize now, no, they were snuff films and I'm the killer. I, I would have never imagined that about myself. I thought I was probably being raped on film or, whatever. And I think that's probably the case. But Fatty's like, oh, no, no. Yeah, there's cameras, but let me show you something else.
Well, I
And,
wonder, I wonder if,
snuff films to me seem to be the most disturbing type of movie in existence. More disturbing than, pedophilia, pornography, whatever they call that. And so my mind couldn't go there. She just showed me the camera first and then said, sketch it. And so I was like, okay. And now I get, oh my God, I'm a snuff film star. It's I'm just kind of digesting that right now. It's disgusting and mind-blowing and revolting. But I know I didn't choose to do that. So anyway, yeah.
with the guy with the short hair, it was interesting that you started to see that.
Well, and I realized that short-haired guy also existed at the training camp. So I made a sketch. The training camp where I have I'm in the actual school with, like being tested. There's that. Not the physical stuff, but here. See him? The same hair. And that's where I'm sitting in class being tested, and my test is really long and everybody else is really short, and time's up. And I've got all this work. So I'm like smarter than these people. That's what that's a sketch of. I don't know what that test was, but and then here's another one. The guy with the same hair, right?
Hmm.
And this is Claire doing like remote viewing stuff,
Oh,
right? And then this guy, here's Claire. Oh no, this one's the remote viewing. That other one was just like psychic stuff. But here's the guy with the same hair, right? There's a clock. There's me in this room drawing a picture of the scene over here, which is, there's a wall between. And I don't know if that means it's a different city or just on the other side of the wall or what. So and here's another guy, the same guy with the same hair, right? And I got to remember what this is a picture of. Oh, well, he's hurting someone in another room, but I am feeling it in a separate room. So these were like experiments in my psychic ability. All right. Like you said, Susan can feel someone else's pain. Well, that was the same one. So I'm like, well, this guy is a part of this snuff film business too. I mean, it's the same hair. I thought that was
so
fascinating.
on his face, you don't see any mustache, you don't see a beard, you don't.
No, I think it's like a military haircut, and he's got just very dark, almost blackish hair. And it's just this real short, like cut, like a military cut. So I think he might be like an intelligence officer of some kind. I don't know.
It'd be interesting over time
See where that develops. Yeah.
to see if you recognize a face.
Well, and it just right now as we're talking, it's like one part of me wants to ask you about what did you think of creepy nun lady? I found her picture.
Oh, how'd you know? I was just going to ask about that.
Oh, I don't know. I guess Claire is hanging out right now. But yeah, she's creepy, hey?
Now, so you sent that picture. Oh gosh, it took me a moment. It's like, is that a guy? Is that okay? So,
I thought it was a man at first too. She looks like a man.
okay, now, okay, can you bring that up again and let's talk about, is it that you saw a photo or you actually, so give me the context again because this
Oh
is
no, I
phenomenal.
went online to find out more history about the School Sisters of Notre Dame. And I read about the one in Wisconsin. And I thought, well, I want to find out the name of the lady who was what did they call her? The plant manager. That's what she called herself, was the plant manager. And she had history and experience doing the maintenance work,
And did
right?
you get a name from her again or of her?
Yeah. Let me pull that up.
Okay, because I'm
Okay,
going
so let
to.
me screen share. Let's see.
Oh, you're okay. I'm on. Um,
Warner. Oh, shoot.
well, I can do this one.
I put her under perps and then School Sisters of Notre Dame. Now I found archives and then echoes. Oh, and but I found her name on one document. And so then I typed her name in and it wound up pulling this up. The Sister Mary John.
Zelensky.
Yeah. She's from like Poland or something.
Think about,
Or
Romania right now, or
Czechoslovakia.
no, what's the they're sending all the money to Zelensky right now. Oh God,
Oh my God, I didn't even put that
Romania,
together.
not Romania. Where are we sending all the?
Notre Dame created a city, Notre Dame and us school sisters.
Okay, let me see her name again.
Oh, okay, here.
That's okay. That's a,
Oh, where is she at? Dang it. I
yeah,
got that
give me her
stupid
name
thing
again.
in the way. Oh, Sister Mary
Okay, so let me
John.
write this down here. Oh, look at that smile.
Doesn't she look like a man? That
I'm telling you, she could be a trans guy.
I know, but I think that she was the sergeant. I think she was in charge of the whole abuse training cycle. If she, or she was certainly in charge of that entire building. She knew what was going on. But yeah, let me find out. Sister Mary John Zielinski. I think I found out where
Okay.
she was from 1982. No, that's not it. Dang it. Maybe it was in this archives. But yeah, they've got a whole place that's archives for this 175-year history of all the North American. No, this is not it either. But yeah, I saved them all, so I should be able to find them. Echoes of Notre Dame on the Lake. Maybe that's it. But I kept looking around to find out what's the name of this plant manager for this time period. And I ran into her name and I was like, oh my goodness. And still when I see her, I get this like shudder. I get a physical reaction looking at that.
That's key right
Like
there.
it's like I don't want to look at it because it freaks me out. No,
Which
um,
and do you get a sense of who you're tapping into, what part that gets freaked out?
no. Oh yeah, okay. So this whole school, let me show you this, was founded in Bavaria, 1833,
We'll see. There we go.
and it moved out from there. Um, went all over Europe, and then it came to America. I think it even started earlier than that. The last Bavarian house that Stab was suppressed. Yeah, they were suppressed. And so then they came back strong later. And you got to ask yourself, well, why were you suppressed? Were you doing bad things? Because if you're just a religious organization, why would that be a big deal? Okay, the religious congregation founded in Bavaria, 1833 by, I guess that's Bishop George Michael Whitman and Carolina Gerhardinger. Congregation was dedicated to work of education, was one of many religious communities that arose in the 19th century Europe after long secularization of schools. So Whitman, the canon of the Cathedral of Ratisbon, received a plan of establishing a congregation of teaching sisters to continue the work. That's right. They wanted to continue having schools that were Christian because all the other schools were being secularized and they wanted to keep the religious in the school. So teaching sisters to continue the work of the suppressed canonesses of Saint Augustine of Notre Dame, the French community founded by Peter Fourier, Alex Leclerc, and Lorraine in 1597. They had over 2,000 members in Western and Central Europe. When the secularization closed many convents in France and all of those across Germany. The last Bavarian house at Stadtmoth was suppressed in 1809. Whitman, aware of the serious consequences that would follow from the loss of religious teachers to the church, initiated preparations for the foundation of new religious community of women dedicated to the education of young girls. And so that's what they did, is they just spread this out. I selected 3 young girls as a nucleus during the years. They received instructions in spiritual life under the guidance of the bishop, encouraged the cessation of anti-religious hostility and by the generosity of the King of Bavaria. So that country supported them, and they were able to open up and spread. Spirit of the continent, however, the rule was intended to serve the congregational. Yeah, they were supposed to be self-sustaining. Mother Teresa, oh yeah. So this is what's interesting, is there was a Mother Teresa back then. Or wait, as such, it cannot be considered a branch of the 16th century French order. Carolina Gerhardinger, now Mother Teresa of Jesus. That's right, they changed their names. So she was the superior general and foundress. They were approved by the Holy See. She ruled different. Her Mother Teresa's rule differed fundamentally from the previous guy. It was a stricter observance of poverty, provided for smaller communities and staff and whatever. Yeah, within 14 years, there was 125 sisters, 16 schools in 14 years. I mean, imagine the funding required to do that. And these are big places too. They're like universities. And so large numbers of young girls continue to request admission to the thriving congregation. And when did the Illuminati get started over there in that whole Bavaria area? It was like 1876-ish. So this is just, 20 years before they start kicking into gear.
And when was that established in the US? When was that
Let
location?
me see. Munich. So it's spread all over Germany and Waller's.
See the orphans, look at that. That's exactly.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's what they took in, were orphans. Oh, and plus I found out too that these original schools in the US were like private schools for the elite, rich, wealthy people. It was a girls' school for rich people.
Before this order took over?
No, that was when this order came to the States, established itself, and the wealthy elite people sent their daughters there. It says the Sisters of Notre Dame are devoted exclusively to education on every level, kindergarten, elementary, high school, college, and are established on 4 continents in 19 countries. They conduct special schools in the US for the handicapped, deaf, and emotionally disturbed, retarded, catechetical centers, day nurseries, pre-vocational schools, and orphanages. Under the Mother General, there are 20. And look at this. They're all over the place. Canada, US, Honduras, Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, all these countries. There's 7 in North America.
This would be the perfect cover for child trafficking, of course.
And this one right here, Mequon, Wisconsin, was established in 1850. That was my place, except it was established in downtown Milwaukee first. Then it grew and expanded so much. That's when they moved to Mequon, I think in the 1950s. And it was so large, and I think they started dropping off having donations or whatever, and that's when they had to sell it to Concord University in 1984. So it was still this School Sisters of Notre Dame when
So
I was there
you wonder
in
where they got the You wonder where they got the funding originally to build that location.
Exactly. And all over Europe, 16 locations in 5 years. And for them, the first one was built by the King of Bavaria. So I'm thinking that these ruling elite or twisted people all down through the centuries, that they probably established that to have their twisted little ceremonies and to train up and coming assassins. I remember
which would
Alan talked once about how,
which would be the reason why they installed a hydraulic obstacle course.
right,
But
and
she and
this
her German
sister,
Shepherd, that's such a
right, and she was, oh, I wish I could find the one where it talks about her history, but she only agreed to become a sister at this place as
oh,
long as she could bring her mechanical and construction tools with her.
where
And I
did you get
thought,
that info? Where did you get that?
that's what I was trying to find. So that's that one, Notre Dame on the Lake. Oh, that's
Wow,
just
that's what we got to find.
a
Oh,
real estate thing. Encyclopedia, City, Sister Mary, Echoes of Notre Dame, Concordia Archives. It's got to be. Let's see what this file does now, because I saved the page. Is it this encyclopedia? No, that was the one I just read to you. Maybe it was further down. Oh, here, post-Vatican II developments. Following the directives of Vatican II, the congregation studied its charism and heritage and rewrote its rules. You are sent. The title, based on the words of Jesus, "Go forth and teach all nations," is the revised constitution which guides more than 3,000 school sisters of Notre Dame today. Oh, it's not in here. Dang.
you'll find it again because that's so crucial. That means
I
right,
printed it. That's why I remembered
they
it.
give somebody then the title of sister when she's certainly not.
Well, and I thought it was unusual that because she was like a kind of like a construction person. Oh, hopefully I printed this. No, I don't think I did. Oh, wait, here she is.
Where is this?
No, it's her, Mother Teresa thing. Archives. Oh man, wouldn't that be something if I couldn't find it again? This collection includes records from 8 former provinces, which is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that lists 8 other places. No, this is just their archives. Wow, I'm gonna have to find that again. But yeah, I remember reading, why would this woman in the, I think it was like the early 1900s be doing a man's job? In that time period, that would have just been very unusual. And then I looked at her and I thought, well, she does look manly. Let me see if it's just one that
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
looks right. It's so what a
opening up.
perfect thing for that perp to be running a, put a little habit on his head.
Yeah. Ew. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Maybe it is a man. Oh my gosh. In memoriam, no, Notre Dame
Right?
Community.
Because we can't put anything past these perps.
That's right.
But he'd walk around if he's doing an official
But this is what it looked
trafficking.
like. This was what it looked like in downtown Milwaukee.
If somebody's got some money.
Oh yeah, big time.
See, look, any guy would dress like that if he's a real perp.
Mm.
say, oh, it's the next best thing to furries or drag queen story
Oh,
hour. Look,
right.
you can't tell if that's a male or female under that whole thing.
Mother Caroline, seen in the 18th. Look at this place. Look at it. This is in downtown Milwaukee. It's
Yeah, how much money
massive.
went into that?
It's massive, yeah. What the heck is
Yeah.
this? What is happening here? I don't
Oh, it's
even
up in the
know.
far top right.
Shit.
Yeah, so you can go back and the
Yeah.
little X was in the far top. Oh, you got it. You got it. Sorry about that. Okay.
No, no, it's okay. I think it's in here where it talks about her, the middle of the night where yeah, this talks about odd occurrences happening. And there was hexes happening on children. It says filthy water was witnessed dripping from the ceiling on all of the students' beds except one. An observant sister confronted one unaffected girl. She began to laugh uncontrollably and revealed that she was cursed as long as she stayed there. Her parents had promised her to a member of a Masonic order, and she
Oh,
chose the covenant instead. Says in return, he vowed an evil hex on the sisterhood as long as she remained there. Says the strange episode was ended when the girl was dismissed to marry her fiance, but the curse remained. The couple lived well into their 90s in a hatefully unhappy marriage. Um, life inside the fortress. Really? Oh, geez, where is she?
notice it doesn't say prison.
Right? So this is 1939. This is about the time period. The chapel, this is the castle falls, somehow the majestic. Oh yeah, this is when they decided to move the roof. Okay, so the roof consistently needed repairs. Bricks have eroded, windows persisted in rattling. The stairs are worn, the floor sags. The fire department is well worked up about the building. Choices, sister. Oh, after the sisters settled in their new lakeside home, the old covenant was slowly abandoned. Um, yeah, the Notre Dame on the lake grew to become 14 buildings, a 500,000 square foot complex. Sister Mary John, plant engineered, commented in 1971 that she had an assistant managed all maintenance for the entire facility. By 1980, the sisters considered selling the land. Oh, it's not on here. But no, I read it. I found it. Where is it? Where she was the maintenance person and she only agreed to come on board as a sister if she were allowed to bring all of her tools with her. And they agreed. Gosh darn it. I gotta find this again. I wonder if I lost it because there was one that would not.
That's really looking like a guy. Look at
It
that.
does now that you mention it. It does. Sister Mary John. Let me see. No more
I
echoes.
mean, if you didn't know what that was, you'd think it was a guy.
I know. It's not that one. It's not in any of these. I must have lost it in memoriam. Let's see. Oh, here. Geraldine entered the School Sisters of Notre Dame at Milwaukee Mother House in 49. She was received in 51, receiving the name Sister Mary John. She was professed, I don't even know what that means, on July 1852, took her final vows on the same date. 6 years later, she had come to the community with a feel for tools, having worked in a Chicago hardware store. And when she decided to accept a religious life, she set only one condition, that she be permitted to bring her carpentry tools with her when she took the veil. From the first year of her profession in 52 until her retirement in 03, She was always available when needed. Her first 5 years of service were in the Milwaukee Mother House printing room. And she served as a cook and refectorian. So maybe she was, maybe she is a man. It said in spring of 65 issue. Now, 5 years later, I would be there. Sister Mary John was featured in an article, Our Johnny on the Spot, by Sister Mary Blase. By then, Sister Mary John had become a licensed engineer and headed a crew of 4 men, also engineers.
Yeah,
Together,
four
they,
men.
what?
Yeah, I headed a crew of 4 men.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Together, they man an 8-hour shifts and manage the sprawling plant that includes not only heating an independent water and sewage system, but extensive refrigeration units, a closed circuit telephone, public address system, and countless electrical and plumbing appliances that must be kept in working order. She was famous at the MEC1 Mother House for always being on call, always ready to help with any need, large or small. Says, as Sister Mary Blase wrote, if she is out on a job, the public address system calls her. And funny thing, even when it says Sister Mary John urgent, and her name is a man's name, John.
That's right.
No one gets very alarmed. The house feels secure. Everyone seemed to take for granted that all things will be restored to order by Sister's quiet and unassuming competence, even
Yeah.
if she has to design a repair part to do the job.
Think about that phrase. Everything will be restored to order.
And that's exactly what Sarge in the part in my
That's
head says is, everything's got to be running properly.
there
It's
we go.
got to be, yeah, and then it goes into how she economized her time and how she used a bicycle and all the different miles. It says both were licensed high pressure boiler operators and continually updated their knowledge, especially in energy conservation by attending workshops and seminars. In 84, when they sold the place, then she moved to Chicago, where she served as the maintenance supervisor and consultant for the entire plant there. It says when the school was sold to the International Charter, she continued on their staff till she retired in 03. 05, she moved to Illinois. Then she died in 2020. But upon notification of her death, all the sisters were upset she was dead and wrote nice things about her.
That's a guy.
I think so. Yeah, and the name, John, it never even hit me until right now. I was thinking John was her last name, Mary John.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, who do you know of any sisters that have a male name in their name?
No. Oh, I don't
Margaret
know many
Ann.
sisters at all, though, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that this is a perp in drag. And he was the maintenance supervisor, the plant manager when I was there. That's so creepy. I mean, and look at the Adam's apple too.
That's so John Zielinski. What's SSND stand for?
School Sisters of Notre
Oh,
Dame.
all right, so that was evident. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It took me a while because I have another file in my stuff that's survivorsupport.net, and so I abbreviate it SSN. I get it mixed up with SSND, so I had to like move it to a different place so I wouldn't mix them up. But yeah, I mean,
The
if you'd like
fact that
link, I
the
can send
fact
it.
that
I
this
mean,
guy had German Shepherds.
oh, here she is too. Now I'm getting Geraldine Zielinski and her twin brother were
Oh,
born in
wait.
Chicago.
Oh, hold on.
She was the daughter of Julius Zielinski and Sophia Furling Zielinski, both Chicagoans.
Oh,
She,
her twin. Oh, hold on. Wait a sec. Her twin brother.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Twin brother.
She had 5 brothers and 3 sisters
They were
baptized
so
3 days after their
identical.
birth.
So by day, the guy's, run around as a guy. By night or whatever, puts on a habit.
Now, why is this here all of a
And that's why,
sudden?
So when somebody starts staring at Sister Mary and she says, "What? You look just, oh, that's my
Well,
twin
they were
brother."
Polish. Yeah, her parents were of Polish descent, and they would say their prayers in Polish. Her
Okay,
dad died
so
when she was 11.
right, where was Auschwitz? Wasn't it Poland?
Oh, you're right. I think Auschwitz, or no, Auschwitz was in Germany, wasn't it? But they
Well, a
had,
number of them were in Poland, I think.
yeah, there was all sorts of stuff going on in Poland. Let me see. I suppose I could look it up on the computer. What country was Auschwitz located? A German network of concentration camps and extermination camps in occupied Poland during World War II. So it was.
Oh gosh, I just brought up two. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Auschwitz.
When I was in Germany, I didn't tell you this in the army. I went on a tour. And one of them was I went with one of my sergeants. Why I would ever choose to do this, I don't know. But we went to a concentration camp, literally, physically, went and walked on the ground and looked at the buildings. And I remember feeling so creeped out. You could feel the death in the air. And was that 1983? So that would have been 40 years after the fact. It is creepy, John. I have stood in a concentration camp. Oh my God. I didn't even put that together, but yeah, her parents were Polish, but that was 1929 when she was born. She didn't go into the School Sisters of Notre Dame till 49, so she was 20 years old. So, oh my God, yes, that was exactly during World War II. And the whole time. John, oh my God, this might have been the Operation Paperclip thing.
But behind this, what I've been doing is I've been looking up. Oh, hold on. Okay, let's find out.
Because, yeah, it was between 1929 and 1949, and that's
Okay, so
exactly.
what did it say her father's name was? Wait,
Let's see, Geraldine and
Julius.
her twin brother. She was the daughter of Julius Zelensky and Sophia Furling Zelensky, and they were both from Chicago. But they were so Polish. She says, but because my parents were Polish descent, we said our prayers in Polish. So I guess they would have been able to speak English, maybe. Oh my God, I'm glad that we looked through this.
I wonder if they changed his name.
Julius and Sophia Furling Zelensky. Probably, I would imagine you'd have to, right? If didn't all the Operation Paperclip people change their names?
No, not all of them.
Zelensky's sister Mary John, Sophia Zelensky profile in LinkedIn, the old country Zelensky family.
There it is. Ukraine, right? Zelensky is Ukrainian. That's the.
Yeah, as a Polish name, it is usually spelled Zelensky, probably derived from the Polish word zeal or green. Its origin is not that of color green, but rather of the green trades, growing or agriculture. Yeah, Zelensky is a common Ukrainian spelling. Yeah, but Poland and Ukraine are right next to each other. And I know that to this day, that's why there's so many Nazi sympathizers in Ukraine. I mean, you're aware of that, right? The
Yeah, I've seen.
all of that Nazi the people who run the Ukraine right now
Yeah,
are neo-Nazis.
yeah.
A lot of the Nazis ran from Germany to Poland, I think when Hitler was was taken down. As the family became on its travels, the family name became various. Oh my God, I would be blown away if this is.
I went to Canada, some of them. And if you're right on that lake, you've accessed all sorts of, I wonder how far it is to
Oh,
Canada.
oh, not far. I mean, I would say 3 or 4 hour drive, maybe from Milwaukee. But if
How
you were on
about
a boat, it might be even quicker.
there you go.
John, here, our great grandparents were John and Sophia Zielinski from Lake Coves, now spelled in Polish, on the confluence of the rivers Tinia and province. I have to save this page, the old country. Where are we at? Journal, perps, SSND, save. I am blown away. She may have been one of those, a man from Nazi Germany. Here, the
Okay,
brief return to Poland was seen as homecoming.
when it
Return.
says a twin brother, come on.
I don't know how common boy-girl twins
Well,
are.
and then why a middle name of John?
Also, too, don't the Nazis did a lot of experimentation on twins, right? They did all those twin studies. This brief return home was ended by the Nazis.
I can see it's the perfect, I mean, okay, so you have a guy by day, or whenever he needs to go to town, or
Right,
whenever he
or go
wants
to
to
his
be a guy.
classes and his engineering school and all that. He's
Yeah,
a man, and he comes back to the school and pretends to be a woman.
there
And
you go. And when people all of a sudden kind of like look at him like, wait a second, don't I know? No, no, that's my twin brother.
oh, right, right,
Th- I
right.
mean, that to me seems like the easiest thing in the world to pull off. I mean, if people are going to believe it, now it's in writing, where it's like my grandma. What a deep voice you have, Mary.
Right?
What a shape of a. Oh no, no, that's my twin brother. You must be. Well, you guys seem so identical.
Yeah. Oh my
That to
gosh, I'm
me, the
gonna
fact that it
get out
says
of there.
a twin brother. Notice it didn't say a twin sister.
It didn't, I'm glad I read it with you because I read that and didn't really put all that together. It didn't
It
even
doesn't
dawn
say a
on me
twin
that
sister.
Zelensky with the Ukraine and all that connection.
Okay.
I am blown away. I
A
think it
twin
was
brother, and her middle name is John.
right.
It's not Mary Ann,
And I
Mary
wonder if her
Sue,
name
Mary.
wasn't Geraldine, but it was Gerald. And she just switched it to Geraldine, right?
Who's
So
going to have Mary John? You
I
don't
like
have
it
that.
didn't even occur to me
So
until
here's
now.
what this perp, right? I'm convinced by looking at this guy, he's a
I thought it
guy,
was a man
but he
too.
has access. It's a pedophile's playground.
Mm-hmm,
He
mm-hmm.
can walk around and have it. He has access to all these orphan girls,
Yeah, but
and he has a
also,
German Shepherd, and he keeps everybody in line. And
yeah,
so when he's perping on somebody, he can either take his hat off but nobody's going to question him because he has a twin brother.
I just realized something too that I remember I said that when it was in downtown Milwaukee that the elite, rich, wealthy girls went to that school. It was like a girls' school for the rich. And then when it moved to Mequon on the lake, that's where I was taken on boats to these wealthy homes.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there was just two worlds going on in that building where the rich girls were on one area and then the, poor folk who were being, trained and conditioned and whatever with this Nazi stuff. And then they would traffic in the brown children. So the poor white children became the assassins for the rich white people and killed off the brown people to satisfy the lusts of the rich. They're satanic lusts.
And
Oh
the
my
fact that they
God.
can bring them in by
By
ocean,
boat. Yeah.
probably by submarine or by boat, it doesn't matter then.
Yeah. I mean, those lakes are so large, John. They are like oceans. They are like oceans. They're just
That's
massive.
a direct access, right, to the ocean.
Well, yeah, if you go through, here's how you remember the Great Lakes. She made him eat onions. So Superior, Michigan, which is where we were, Erie, here, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. So you'd have to go up Lake Michigan and go through four other lakes and then a small river that will take you out to the New York Harbor or Washington, D.C. I'd have to look at a map. But yeah, I think is it the St. Lawrence River? That river will take you all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, you can't go west, but you can go east. And that's where migrants came in,
There we go.
the East Coast. So they could,
The
yeah,
orphan, the
traffic
or
people all the way along the way.
there we go.
Wow. Let me see what this map shows. Actually, I should look at it. We only have 15 minutes.
Wow.
I
Because
am
that
tripped out.
guy, right? He has a twin, or she has a
I
twin
never put
brother.
that
That's
together.
just stupid. The
I,
guy looks like a guy, and her middle name's a guy's name,
yeah. See, oh wait, let me share here.
right? If you look at that picture and you didn't know what was behind it, you would think it's a cutout of a guy's head.
Yes, when I glanced at it a couple of times, I thought, God, that looks like a guy.
And the fact that you felt
Where
when you
is
look at it, you feel a certain kind of way.
Oh, I do, totally. Yeah, share screen,
That's a
share.
huge indicator right there.
So this is annoying. But see, here's Lake
Okay.
Michigan. Let me zoom in. Make this bigger. So she went to Chicago after Milwaukee, but her and her parents came from Chicago. So here's the lakes.
Yep.
All you have to do is come up through here.
So
And it's,
there's a series of locks, is that right? That you can make it
oh,
through.
yeah, yeah, ships. This is a shipping lane right
Oh,
here.
there you go.
It's the
Right.
border and a shipping lane. But look, you can come out here up into Canada, or you can come down here. And I am sure that there are probably waterways that take you into New York from all the way along here. I'm sure of it. Where is Washington, D.C.? I think, oh, yeah, there's waterways. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but
But still, you just come out and around by
yeah,
boat.
yeah. For sure. And I'm sure you could probably come down through here. But yeah, this is a major shipping lane for Canada and I
Because
think the northern part of the
what's the
US.
distance really by boat to make it to New York or Washington?
I'd
Like
imagine maybe a day or two.
there.
Because if you were to drive from here, right about here is where that school is. And that is an hour drive. So I drove up to Green Bay. My sister lived in Green Bay, and I think it took me 4 hours to get there by road. So if you're going by lake, probably 3 hours. I would imagine maybe just a
We get
day
out
and a half to get to the ocean. Yeah.
a day or
And
two. It
you'd
doesn't
have
matter.
access to all of Canada, all of that. Wow. And see, look, and Canada is nothing but water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and this is where, well, my mom lived. Where is it? Calgary. Where's Edmonton? My mom lived somewhere on Edmonton. And
Well,
she
I
married
listened to a little
another
bit.
pedophile. Yeah.
I was going to say I listened to a little bit more of that part too, where you mentioned
He was a
how,
pedophile.
yeah,
I was blown away. So yeah, I mean it's just so pervasive. It's disgusting. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. But yeah, we're coming up on 3 hours now.
That's why I knew we need it, right? It was just hard to really get into stuff in 2 hours. Um,
Yeah.
okay, first of all, how are you doing on the inside? How's everybody doing?
Good, good. Yeah, I'm always excited and happy when I get off the line with you.
Okay,
Always. Everybody. I'm always feeling good.
okay.
So I think
Well, you
I
you
think
want to bring
everybody's
up the most recent version of the map?
oh sure, yeah, I've got that ready to go. I'll show it's changed again.
There you go. Well, it's
Um,
wonderful that you're keeping each, I mean, are you keeping each kind of
yes,
version? Because
yeah,
that'll be so
I'll
helpful.
save it when I start and then yeah, I'll I'll show you here. Journal parts maps. This is how many maps I have now. All these. So, and then these are the pictures of the sketched ones. So yeah, that's so I pulled these two guys out of here because these are gifts from God, the intuition, the clairvoyance, and the dreams. These are my two playful parts. I'm going to start riding my bike outside again, I think once a month or maybe twice a month. And Chris doesn't like it, and honestly, it is somewhat dangerous. So I think I'm going to go over to our lake, which is a private lake, and there's no traffic, so I'll be safe there. It's a 3 miles around the lake, so it'll be a good ride. So Joy gets to be come back to life. And then I moved these guys into here because they're all the creators.
Okay, now I'm not
Puzzle.
seeing anything.
Oh
Just,
shit.
yeah, that's okay. I thought you were looking for it, but
Oh, that's right. I forgot to screen
okay.
share again. Okay, can you see it?
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, so it's just these three guys up here. They're gifts from God. These two are my playful selves. I thought it's really sad that I only have two playful parts of me. One is trapped at 5 years old. Um, but I moved these two guys out of this category and put them down here because they're more creators. Knit makes blankets and stuff, and puzzle puts puzzles together. And these are all my creative people. Do my nails and organize and plants and cooking and decorating. And that's that. So these are all happy things here. These are all the thinkers over here. Um, Video, I'm not sure if this should be over in the creators or not, but for now it's there.
Jenna, let me ask, because this is a question that sometimes
Hmm.
comes up for other survivors.
Hmm.
Um, you are clearly wanting to know, you're very open to finding out who's there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What would you say to a client? Because this will be a good one maybe for you to address as well. Um, was there ever a time that you would have said to yourself, well, okay, maybe I have parts, but you know what, five and no more, I'm okay. Versus
That's what it was
now,
at first. I thought
okay,
15 or 20.
yeah. So talk, what has that uh, kind of change or transformation or transition for you from uh, thinking, okay, I'm going to cap this. I'm okay with a certain cap, but now all of a sudden the cap is off, and you're finding all
No,
sorts of
I think because you said to me, what was it that you said was that, you something about you can't think about the number, I think
Okay,
was
good.
what you
Yeah,
said. And I thought, that's right, because if I do try and put a cap on it, then I'm consciously choosing to ignore a lot of stuff. And imagine if I had stopped at 10 or 15, which is what I thought it would be, I would not know about any of this
okay,
right
there we go.
here,
There we go.
none of
That's
it. I would not, I wouldn't know any of it. And, I'm asking myself, is every, like, I, you saw the video of me beating up Ted, right?
yep,
And at the end, I talked about in the shower, I discovered booger,
yep.
right? I thought, am I nitpicking? Even though booger only existed for 2 or 3 weeks, it's still a part. You can't, I mean,
Well, and you know what? If she doesn't exist for 3 or 4 weeks, she's just tucked away then.
what do you mean?
Well, she'll be there. She's once they're there, they're there.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, like as an adult, is that part of me that likes to decorate, is that really a part or is that just the creative part of me? And I'm like, well, it's a part.
There we
It's the
go. There we
creative
go.
part. And it's not the one that cooks. It's not the one that plants. It's not the one that organizes. It's the one that likes to paint
There you go.
and likes to buy plant, So yeah, you have to embrace them all.
Good.
I mean, yeah, these are easy ones. These are fun, nice ones, but
And it will match, or it makes sense that there's
it's
look at the the power of the pain, the degree of impact, the degree of what you were
well,
subjected to.
each split, yeah, and even the ones with Chris. I mean, I think Chris birthed 4 or 5 of these.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm like, yeah, I mean, all of them led me here.
Yeah,
So I like who I am, and so I have to embrace how I got here.
right.
So yeah, I mean, and right now, it's like the sketches of the stuff in the mansion. So those parts, I don't even know their names yet, but they're popping their head up. But I found the 2 on the boat. There might be more there.
Yeah.
And I put miscellaneous because I thought, I don't wonder, what if there's something else?
Yeah.
So yeah, it keeps evolving. But yeah, all of them surround making money, sex, and killing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sick. It's disgusting.
That's
But
phenomenal. It's amazing that you actually know the body count number.
well, and it's funny because as I sat there one day and I thought, geez, I wonder how many people they killed. All of a sudden, the numbers just popped into my head, and I thought, hurry up and write it down, or you may not
I was going to
remember.
say that's such a good sign in terms of, or
And they told me,
in
I
order
would
to
not
facilitate
know.
healing.
Yeah, yeah, like Joker really only strangled adults. There was one child because he was about quietly killing people without any marks. That was like the competition in the business world that they wanted eliminated. But Frack was about beheading babies for satanic rituals. Frick was about handling adults and babies during rituals. And Pumpkin, same thing. Joker was more about it was done privately for business purposes, but all the rest was satanic nonsense. It's not nonsense, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just nonsensical, gratuitous,
that's right. That's right.
unnecessary, and unneeded death. It was
Yeah.
all for their ego and their appetites purely. So yeah, so that's what this whole map is. It's like a whole Fatty created a whole different world for that. And Trish took care of all the up until that point.
Here would be
Oh.
another interesting thought. Just kind of let it percolate, marinate, see if there's anything to this.
Mhm.
We're looking from the top down, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
one-dimensional. You wonder if you were to turn it on its side, would there be 3 dimensions to it? And if so, who's at what level?
Yeah, I've thought about that. It kind of is like that. The youngest or earliest, like for this section of downers, these are the earliest and youngest of each section are closest to the center. And the oldest of each section is on towards the outside.
Yeah.
And
So that may
this are,
be, it's just another, an additional thing to kind of
yeah,
ponder that if
yeah.
you get a feel of depth and height in 3 dimensions, where would those go? But Well, let me
Yeah,
pray. I'm so glad we had this extra hour. We needed it
yeah.
much.
Well, thank you for it.
Well, you're more than welcome. Well, let me pray and then
Okay.
keep the information coming.
Will do. It's a lot. I actually, for the first time in like a week and a half, worked on, one of my videos for Alan's channel. So it's kind of a nice break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let me pray.
Okay.
Lord, thank you once again for being in our session, for giving Diana even an additional sense of what may have happened as far as this Sister Mary John guy. Lord, the stuff that what everybody went through and that even what Fatty's having to work through. Lord, thank you that you can help them see what is true as far as what they were not responsible for. Lord, thank you that we don't have to go with our feelings, but we can go with truth, especially when we're having to work through things of false guilt. Because Satan comes along and condemns us and will tell us all sorts of things that aren't true as far as what we feel guilty for when in reality, we're just doing our best. Lord, thank you that you are helping Diana put the pieces together as far as the puzzle pieces of her life so that she can pick up the torch where Ellen left off, and she can continue to help set prisoners free. Continue the good work that you have started in her, Lord, and give her wisdom and insight into what to tell Chris and the timing of that. Lord, continue to work on him, work on his heart, work on those wounded places so that he can be receptive to what Diana is doing, and that sense that you gave Diana about both of them working together. We'll trust that that is your vision that you gave her, and so just continue to work on him so that he can deal with his own feelings, his own emotions, his own wounded places, so that he can come alongside her and support her, and they can be more of a team. So we'll trust you're going to continue to work on him. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. All
Okay,
right.
well, excellent work. Excellent
Thank
work.
you. Thank you. I mean, you're excellent work too. I mean, you really show me things that just don't even occur to me. So it puts a lot of stuff together for me. And then that just like cascades into more stuff. So
Well, I kind of fulfilling the role of a coach, but in a way, I got the easy job. You're on the field slugging it out. So, but bless your heart, Diana, you're doing an outstanding job.
thank you. Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
okay, we'll keep the information coming along, and we'll just meet up.
Ooh, you too. All righty.
Okay, and
Have a
then
good day.
we'll talk. What, Friday? Is that?
Yeah, Friday at 10.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Look
righty.
forward to it.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.